in one piece. At the beginning, it merges with One Punch Man. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51, Fishing Enforcement. After Ferguson finished his report, he still stood there. Bai Ye asked, "Is there anything else to say?" Ferguson hesitated for a moment and then said, "Major General Bai Ye, Doflamingo's auction house will hold an auction today. It is said that the items to be auctioned include devil fruits and slaves. Didn't they report it to us?" "No." "Okay, I see. You can go and do other things first." Ferguson looked at Bai Ye in confusion and left the office without saying anything else. He never understood that Bai Ye issued the 5 rules in order to completely transform the lawless zone into a place under the supervision of the Navy. But these days, Bai Ye turned a blind eye to those who violated the rules, as if everything was the same as before the rules were made. There were even bold pirates who directly attacked the patrolling soldiers. If these people didn't know that this place was only half a day's journey from the Navy headquarters, they didn't dare to kill. Otherwise, the casualties of the soldiers would have reached double digits. But Bai Ye still had no reaction to this, but just called back all the patrolling Navy soldiers and stopped sending them out, as if this incident had never happened. This caused many people in the land of lawlessness to openly mock the Navy, saying that the rules they had set were worthless. The Navy didn't even dare to say a word after injuring a Navy soldier. It was really funny that they wanted to change the rules of the land of lawlessness. Many soldiers began to complain about the rules issued by Bai Ye. They thought that if it weren't for Bai Ye's rules, these pirates wouldn't react so strongly to the Navy. Some school level officers even thought that Bai Ye was too young and took things for granted without considering the consequences, and they were ready to propose that Bai Ye revoke these 5 rules. Let the Sabaody archipelago return to its previous state. Some more radical ones even wanted to suggest that the Navy headquarters change someone to manage the Sabaody archipelago. Ferguson felt that Bai Ye should know about these things, but Bai Ye had not reacted at all so far. Just let the situation develop. If he hadn't been with Bai Ye for half a year and knew how cruel Bai Ye's methods were, he probably thought that his current thoughts would be no different from those of other soldiers. If this continued, Bai Ye himself and the Sabaody Navy would become a joke on the sea. But until now, he still believed that Bai Ye had his own considerations for doing this, so he did not mention these things in front of Bai Ye. Bai Ye looked at Ferguson's back as he left and did not say much. He knew very well what Ferguson was thinking and even knew what news was circulating outside. But he deliberately indulged in all these. For Bai Ye, he did not want to waste time with these people in the Sabaody archipelago, so he wanted to solve them all at once without leaving any hidden dangers. The best way is to watch the situation develop quietly. Let those people feel that the Navy has no constraints on them and they can completely ignore what Bai Ye says. There will be more people coming out to make trouble. Then, Bai Ye will catch all those people who are jumping happily. The happier they are jumping now, the more painful they will cry later. This method is commonly known as fishing enforcement, but it is obviously not Bai Ye's style to just sit there idle. When he heard that Doflamingo's auction house was holding an auction, Bai Ye knew what to do today. Before, since he promised Leslie to help Colonel Hall and other soldiers get revenge. Let's go to the auction house to collect some interest today. Smoker, get ready. I'll take you to see the world today. Bai Ye and Smoker went to the auction house without any intention of restraining themselves. The two wore the uniforms of the Marine Headquarters Rear Admiral, with the cloak of justice on their backs. The spotless white uniforms were very conspicuous. The two walked on the street like a swagger, as if they were afraid that others would not see them. Unfortunately, they were not greeted with fear and panic, but with contempt and disgust. It feels that, if it weren't for the two Marine Headquarters Rear Admirals, they might not be able to beat them. Otherwise, they all want to come up and leave a dirty footprint on their white clothes. Even with Smoker's thick skin, he felt extremely embarrassed and wanted to kill all those who looked at them with contempt. But looking at Bai Ye on the side, he looked calm and composed and didn't care about the strange looks of others at all. Smoker had to admire Bai Ye's scheming. He was only 18 years old, but he had such strong strength, and he was so calm. He is indeed the man I'm willing to follow. Just as Smoker was sighing, he suddenly saw Bai Ye take out a video phone worm from his arms. He began to film the people and shops around him, muttering, "That kid here scolded me twice, you wait to die." The owner of this shop looked at me with contempt. "Your shop is gone." Huh. The woman on the left praised me for being handsome and having good taste, so I'll let you go. After hearing Bai Ye's muttering, Smoker almost knelt down to Bai Ye on the spot. "What kind of trick is this? Brother, you are really good at playing. You have figured out how to hold a grudge." The admiration he had for Bai Ye just now had long been fed to the dog by Smoker. The two walked all the way to the auction house, and Bai Ye reluctantly put away the video phone worm in his hand. He said unwillingly, "We only recorded 187 people today, which is too few." For Bai Ye, recording one person is just making a lot of money, and no one would complain that they have too much money. "Smoker, from now on, the two of us will go out every day. I want to see how many people I can kill on shampoo." Smoker said inwardly, TSK, this is the killer I remember. Even if he is shameless at ordinary times, he is not ambiguous when killing people. When the two were about to enter the auction, they were stopped by two security guards at the door. The security guard on the left raised his neck and said arrogantly, "Please show the invitation letter from the auction house. Guests without invitation letters are not allowed to enter." It seems that Bai Ye and Smoker, the two rear admirals of the Navy headquarters, are not as prestigious as him, the security guard at the door. Smoker said in a bad tone, "Are you venting your anger with your eyes? Can't you see that we are rear admirals?" Faced with Smoker's threat, the security guard was not moved at all and said coldly, "No invitation letter means no entry. This is the rule of this auction house." Just as Smoker was about to get angry, a woman's chuckle suddenly sounded nearby. Bai Ye and Smoker looked in the direction of the sound. A man and a woman stood arm in arm nearby. The man had a pale face, deep eye circles, and wore a well-tailored suit. He looked decent. The woman wore a backless dress and was extremely seductive, attracting the attention of many passers-by. Chapter 52, Celestial Dragons. "My dear, the Navy is so rude. They are far inferior to you." The seductive woman hugged the man's arm and said delicately. Harris hugged the seductive woman into his arms, and his big hands moved on her body without paying attention to anyone else, and said with a lewd smile, "Of course, the Navy is just a bunch of reckless people. Only the Navy marshals and GUO is okay." Harris spoke without any reservations, and Bai Ye and Smoker heard his words clearly. Smoker was immediately furious. He was despised all the way, and was stopped by the security guards when he came to the auction house. Now there are two people who look like dogs, humiliating the Navy in front of him, and even marshals and GUO can only be regarded as okay in their mouths. This made the already irritable Smoker unable to suppress the desire to take action. His arms turned into smoke, and when he was about to grab the man, two ghostly figures suddenly appeared in front of the man. One of them said in a hoarse voice, "We are all colleagues. We just said something wrong. There is no need to use the power of the fruit, right?" Smoker has been in the Navy for nearly 10 years. Seeing that the other party was also wearing a white suit and a silver mask, and was still using the Navy 6 styles, he probably guessed the other party's identity. The secret intelligence agency directly under the world government can use the personnel of the secret intelligence organization to protect this man. The identity of this man is definitely not ordinary. Bai Ye said lightly, "Don't you have to pay the price for saying the wrong thing? Who are you?" "Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters, Bai Ye." Bai Ye. The person who spoke seemed to suddenly remember something. As members of a secret organization, they need to remember a lot of information about people, whether they are enemies or friends. And half a year ago, they saw Bai Ye's information. Zifa's favorite disciple, who fought 600 people in the training camp, was probably between the Vice Admiral and the Commodore of the Navy headquarters. The information updated by Bai Ye recently is that he was appointed as the Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters and managed the islands 1 to 29 of Shabaodi. His strength is unknown, but the minimum estimated strength is Commodore. Thinking of this, their expressions under the masks gradually became panic. They didn't expect to meet such a tough guy this time. He quickly explained, "This is Harris, the son of Finance Minister Wells. We are all from the world government." Bai Ye's cold words suddenly rang out. "One arm, I can pretend not to hear it." Harris apologized to Bai Ye. Harris was directly angry, pointing at Bai Ye and said indignantly, "Marlowe, you want me to apologize to a small major general? One arm, plus a leg." Marlowe was anxious. Apologize? He didn't dare to bet whether Bai Ye would take action. If Bai Ye really took action, they might not be able to leave here alive. Harris was stunned. He had never seen Marlowe so anxious. Although he was a dandy, he was not a fool. Seeing that Marlowe was so tough and forced him to apologize, he realized that the major general in front of him might not be someone he could provoke. At this time, regardless of his image in front of his female companion, he bowed to Bai Ye and apologized. "I'm sorry, Major General Bai Ye, I just said something wrong." But before Harris stood up, the knife flashed, and Harris's right arm suddenly lost consciousness. The intense pain surged to his brain like a tide. The knife was so fast that Marlowe and the others had no time to react. The blood spurted from Harris's broken arm directly splashed on the face of the female companion. Looking at the blood on her hands and face, the seductive woman had never seen such a scene before. After screaming, she fainted directly. Harris covered his broken arm, rolled on the ground in pain, and kept wailing, "Ah, my arm, my arm." Marlowe didn't expect that even after Harris apologized, Bai Ye would still attack him. He couldn't help but said angrily, "Major General Bai Ye, Master Harris has apologized." Bai Ye casually picked his ear with his little finger. "He just pointed his right hand at me, which made me very upset. The tone you use to talk to me now also makes me very upset. You can try to say it again. You see, will my next knife fall on you or Harris?" Hearing this, Marlowe dared not speak immediately. He silently picked up Harris's broken arm and helped Harris away with his companions. As for the female companion who fainted on the ground, he pretended not to see it. This is a lawless area. None of the people who survive here are good men and women. After losing Harris's protection, the fate of this woman was almost foreseeable. Bai Ye turned around and looked at the two guards at the door of the auction house. "Are you going to let us in now?" After seeing Bai Ye's ruthless methods, the two guards dared not say no, because they would probably get stabbed. But if they let Bai Ye and the other two in directly, if they were blamed, they would not be able to get away with it. Just as the guards were struggling, a shorter, slightly wider, and more luxuriously dressed man suddenly walked out of the auction house. The guard was relieved to see the visitor and hurriedly asked, "Lord Boyle, these two Navy officers want to go in, but they don't have an invitation." Boyle ignored the guard and walked up to Bai Ye and said respectfully, "Lord Bai Ye, Lord Smoker, I'm so sorry. I should have sent you two invitations, but I was too busy and forgot to do so. Please don't be angry." "Really? Was it really a momentary oversight? I heard from my men that you were going to auction slaves at this auction, but you didn't report it to the Navy. Did you forget to do so? As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person." Boyle's attitude was absolutely respectful enough when he came up, but it was a pity that such an attitude didn't work on Bai Ye, because he was determined to find trouble today. Boyle seemed to see that Bai Ye was not a good person, but he kept smiling and whispered, "Lord Bai Ye, it is said that Saint Esther Kirk will come to participate in this auction." Saint Esther Kirk? Celestial dragons? I didn't expect to see them so soon. Back then, Bai Ye had thought of killing the celestial dragons to become famous in the sea and thereby gain a large amount of world source power. But now Bai Ye's identity as a Navy is still of great use to him. Otherwise, Bai Ye really wanted to test his sword on the celestial dragons. Bai Ye narrowed his eyes slightly. "Are you threatening me with the celestial dragons?" No, it's just that Esther Kirk Saint nominated me to participate in this auction. If it is suddenly cancelled for other reasons, Esther Kirk Saint will probably be very dissatisfied. If we arouse Esther Kirk Saint's anger, then no one will be able to explain. Boyle pretended to be terrified. Chapter 53. Doflamingo's plan. Led by Boyle, Bai Ye and Smoker entered the auction house and sat on the left side of the first row. There were about 200 seats in the auction house. When the tick came in, most of the seats were already occupied. Bai Ye and Smoker, who were wearing the uniforms of rear admirals, attracted the attention of many people because this kind of auction was rarely attended by the Navy. Those who attended were usually pirates, bounty hunters and underground forces. Occasionally, there would be celestial dragons coming to the auction house to buy slaves. But for the Navy, most of the things in the auction house were useless to them. And in the lawless zone, you can't take action to arrest pirates. If you come, you will arouse the hatred of many pirates towards you, so it's better not to come. Especially no one dares to wear Navy uniforms to attend the auction. The appearance of Bai Ye and Smoker refreshed their cognition. These two rear admirals are so arrogant. Why not wait until the auction is over and kill them? Anyway, the Navy on the island is so cowardly. If we kill two rear admirals, they can't do anything to us. At worst, we can just kill them and escape by boat. By then, even if the Navy headquarters sends people to catch us, we will have already run away without a trace. That's right, this can also increase our bounty a lot. Several pirate groups sitting next to each other discussed the matter of joining forces, and murderous intent emerged in their eyes when they looked at Bai Ye. For pirates, the high or low bounty is the best way to show their strength. Just like people often say that the bounty of a certain four emperors pirate group is more than 20 billion baileys. This is a recognition of the strength of the pirate group. And the fastest way to increase the bounty is to kill the Navy generals. In layman's terms, these pirates want to improve their reputation by killing Bai Ye. At that time, they may be able to become the four emperors' subordinates by entering the new world. Bai Ye, are we really going to attend this auction? Smoker asked in confusion. After hearing that there would be celestial dragons at this auction, Smoker didn't want to stay. As long as there is a sense of justice in the Navy, almost no one can tolerate the actions of celestial dragons. Even for the Navy, the existence of celestial dragons is the biggest irony of the justice they uphold. It's just that the status of celestial dragons has been deeply rooted and passed down for 800 years. The idea that celestial dragons are gods has also been passed down for 800 years. So even if they are dissatisfied with celestial dragons, they can only avoid them like Garp. Try not to contact celestial dragons. Bai Ye's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light, and he chuckled. Why not? You don't really think that the celestial dragons coming this time is a coincidence, do you? Smoker was stunned when he heard this, isn't it? Think about it yourself. As soon as we arrived at the auction house from the naval base, we met Harris, the son of the Minister of Finance, and had a conflict with him. After I cut off Harris's arm and Harris left in embarrassment, the owner of the auction house, Boyle, appeared. I said they didn't report the sale of slaves to the Navy, and Boyle told us that the Kirk Society would participate in this auction and use the celestial dragons to pressure me. Do you think these are just coincidences? After Bai Ye's explanation, Smoker connected these things together and felt that they were indeed too coincidental. But there were some things that Smoker still didn't understand. Even if the auction is Doflamingo's property, how can he command the son of the Minister of Finance and the Celestial Dragons? Just because he is a Shichibuke. Bai Ye explained patiently, it is not enough to just rely on the identity of a Shichibuke. But what if Doflamingo himself is a Celestial Dragon? Why was Doflamingo able to contact the Celestial Dragons to put pressure on the Navy? It was because he was a former Celestial Dragon, although he had always been despised by the Celestial Dragons living in Mirajoa. But their attitude towards Doflamingo was obviously much stronger than other civilians. Moreover, Doflamingo might have the secrets of the Celestial Dragons. What? Doflamingo is a Celestial Dragon? Smoker almost shouted out in surprise. In any case, he could not imagine that a Celestial Dragon would go out to sea to become a pirate and even become a Shichibuke recognized by the world government. But the reality is so outrageous. Just like Smoker did not understand why Doflamingo became a pirate, Doflamingo also did not understand why his father gave up his identity as a Celestial Dragon and was willing to become a civilian. In the end, he was killed by the civilians he had always considered lowly. Just as the two were talking, a violent commotion suddenly broke out at the door of the auction house. The owner and staff of the auction house all knelt at the door and shouted loudly, "Welcome to St. Esther Kirk and Palace Mapel Cecil." Generally, male celestial dragons will add a saint after their names, while female celestial dragons will add a palace after their names to show their nobility. The two celestial dragons wore bubble hoods, expensive and gorgeous clothes, rode on male long-handed slaves, and followed by a dozen slaves from the door. The two celestial dragons were not as ugly and low intelligence as the celestial dragons in the anime. Instead, they had a handsome man and beautiful woman. Of course, the only similarity was that the superior momentum and contempt for civilians could be felt from their eyebrows. When the celestial dragons entered, most of the pirates' faces changed slightly. They gritted their teeth and knelt down before the celestial dragons, resting their heads on the floor to avoid attracting their attention. However, there were also a very small number of hardened pirates who were unwilling to kneel down before the celestial dragons and quietly hid their bodies behind the seats. They also did not dare to attract the attention of the celestial dragons. There was no other way, because once the celestial dragons were offended, the admirals or CP0 of the Navy headquarters had to go out to protect them. Under such a threat, except for the 4 Emperor's pirates, I'm afraid no one would dare to attack the celestial dragons. Under the leadership of Boyle, 2 celestial dragons were also allowed to sit in the first row a little to the left. From this point of view, there were only 4 people sitting in the first row, 2 celestial dragons, and Bai Ye and Smoker. What was also striking was that Bai Ye and Smoker did not seem to care about the arrival of the celestial dragons. They were still sitting there steadily, which was very abrupt compared to the pirates who were forced to kneel down and hide temporarily. The Kirksaint saw that Bai Ye and the other 2 did not kneel and raised her eyebrows, wanting to scold them. However, Persists Palace on the side noticed that Bai Ye and the other 2 were rear admirals and said crisply, "Let's start the auction quickly. I need to replenish some slaves." Chapter 54, Unexpected Attack. Hearing what Persists Palace said, the Kirksaint snorted in dissatisfaction and didn't say much. Seeing this, Boyle's eyes flashed with disappointment. He thought that the celestial dragons might have a conflict with Bai Ye, but he didn't expect that Persists Palace's words would make the Kirksaint give up the idea. This disappointed many pirates who were waiting to see Bai Ye and the others laugh. But some pirates also began to wonder why Bai Ye and the others had such confidence and dared not to take the celestial dragons seriously. The Kirksaint was a little unhappy, but she didn't dare to express it in front of Persists Palace, so she could only say impatiently, "Let the auction start quickly." "Yes, Master the Kirksaint. Although the celestial dragons are all arrogant, they are not all stupid fools without brains. If everyone is as stupid as shown in the anime, how can they control the world government and become the god on the sea?" Persists Palace is obviously one of the smarter ones among the celestial dragons. Although she didn't know the identities of Bai Ye and others, she saw that Bai Ye was so young and had already become a major general of the Navy headquarters. And he dared to show such an attitude of turning a blind eye to their arrival. This made her have a few more guesses about Bai Ye in her heart. Usually, when the officers of the Navy meet the celestial dragons, most of them will not choose to kneel down to the celestial dragons, but will be respectful in their attitude. What's more, the Navy is still the strongest armed group in the hands of the world government, and they occasionally need the protection of the Navy when they travel. Persists Palace felt that there was no need to make the relationship with the Navy stiff because of some trivial matters. Under the urging of the celestial dragons, the auction started soon. As mentioned before, the items at this auction are basically slaves, and devil fruits occasionally appear. These 2 are the most popular items at the auction. Like the celestial dragons and the nobles of various countries, they mainly buy slaves. The goal of pirates and bounty hunters is still devil fruits. After all, the improvement of strength by devil fruits is earth-shaking. As the auction began, slaves were pushed onto the auction table one by one and displayed to everyone. The beautiful princess of the fallen country was forced to wear sexy and revealing clothes, showing her attractive curves on the stage. This attracted countless nobles who looked like fat pigs below to compete for bids. The defeated and captured general, with strong muscles and a special temperament that had been precipitated from years of bloody battles on the battlefield, also attracted the pursuit of many rich women. The pirate captain, who had a bounty of 30 million baileys, was once arrogant and domineering, and did bad things. Now his eyes are dim as grey, his face shows his determination to die, and he is picked and picked like an object. As for relatively ordinary slaves, there are countless of them. Most of them are the people of the fallen country, who were captured and sold uniformly by the victorious country. Similarly, it is not ruled out that a large number of people were secretly captured by people who specialize in slave hunting. They completely lost their normal lives, were away from their relatives, and became slaves at the bottom of the sea. The celestial dragons did not seem to be very interested in normal humans, but were very interested in other races. Almost all of the dwarfs, long-handed people, and mermaids were bought by 2 celestial dragons. Especially when the auctioneer introduced the finale slave, the slave of the giant tribe. Bai Ye finally saw what it meant to not treat money as money. He asked for 500 million berries directly, which scared the other people who had some ideas and dared not speak. Think about it, the celestial dragons collect heavenly gold from more than 200 member countries every year. The amount of heavenly gold is several billion berries at a time, not to mention those rare treasures, devil fruits and the like. Even devil fruits can be fed to slaves at will. For them, this money is probably not money. This made Bai Ye a little tempted. Good man, I enforced the rules in the Sabaody archipelago just to make a lot of money. For this, I didn't hesitate to be despised for many days, just to make a big profit at once. But the money that Bai Ye wanted to make, in front of the celestial dragons, I'm afraid it's just the money to go out and purchase goods. TSK, it's really annoying to compare with others. At the auction, a superhuman devil fruit also appeared, but Boyle did not tell the specific information of the devil fruit. Instead, it was auctioned at a low price of 100 million berries. Come to think of it, Doflamingo is not stupid. If this fruit is a powerful fruit, he will definitely give it to his loyal subordinates to eat. Why would he auction it? But even without knowing the information about the fruit, it was still scrambled by many pirates, and finally sold at a high price of 230 million berries. Bai Ye saw that the auction was coming to an end, so he went out. Although Bai Ye's actions attracted the attention of some people, Bai Ye came back 3 minutes later, so they didn't care much. After Boyle auctioned the last item, the auction ended successfully, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After all, there are 2 celestial dragons here, and he was afraid that his poor performance would cause dissatisfaction among the celestial dragons. Now it seems that the auction has finally ended successfully. Boyle came to the Kirksaint and Mapel Cecil Palace, knelt down and said respectfully, I will send the slaves you bought to Mary Joa immediately. The Kirksaint said excitedly, you don't have to send them. Pull the slaves here now. I want to ride the giant back. The giant slave that appeared just now was bought by the Kirksaint at a cost of 500 million baileys. Hearing this, the long-handed slave standing not far behind the Kirksaint showed a trace of despair on his face. When the celestial dragons want to change their mounts, it means that their former mounts are no longer of any value, and their fate is usually death. As he expected, when the Kirksaint rode on the giant slave who was 50 or 60 meters tall, he took out a gun inlaid with gems and made of gold from his arms and pointed it at him. Bang! A golden bullet shot into his forehead. Before he died, there seemed to be sadness and a trace of relief in his eyes. But before he died, he did not resist at all. Even though he knew he would definitely die, he still didn't resist. Even if he was rescued, he probably wouldn't be able to recover to the way he was before he became a slave. Bai Ye was also moved by the scene in front of him. This is a world where people eat each other. When Bai Ye stood up and prepared to leave, Boyle seemed to have been watching Bai Ye. He walked over and said, Major General Bai Ye, are you going to leave now? Bai Ye looked at Boyle with interest. What? Do you still want to keep me here? No, don't you say that the sale of slaves needs to be reported to the Navy? I was busy before, so I forgot about it. Now that the auction is over, I finally have time to report to the Navy. But do you think it is still necessary to report? Boyle stood up and looked at Bai Ye as if he didn't care about the identity of Major General Bai Ye at all. Smoker on the side had already clenched his 10 hands in his hands, with veins on the back of his hands bulging, and said angrily, do you want to die? Boyle's words could be regarded as a serious provocation. Just because the slaves have been sold to the celestial dragons, what can the Navy do? Even if they have reported it, can they still go to the celestial dragons to ask for the slaves? Bai Ye stopped Smoker, who wanted to take action, and suddenly showed a gentle smile on his face, saying, "Since the auction is over, there is naturally no need to report it. Just don't forget it next time." Smoker didn't expect Bai Ye to say something that was slightly submissive. He looked back in confusion and saw the gentle smile on Bai Ye's face and shuddered instantly. Why is this smile so familiar? Every time Bai Ye smiles at people like this, someone will die. There has never been an exception, which means Smoker probably guessed that Bai Ye should have his own plan, so he put away his 10 hands and obediently retreated behind Bai Ye. When Boyle heard Bai Ye's words and saw Smoker put away his weapon, his confidence increased greatly. "Don't worry, Major General Bai Ye, as long as I'm not busy next time, when the auction is held, I will definitely report it to the Navy." "Report? Report a fart. I'm busy every time." Bai Ye showed a harmless smile again and turned away without saying anything. Sometimes being killed directly might be a happy thing. Smoker looked at Boyle with a slightly pitying look, which made Boyle feel a chill. However, thinking about how he was so arrogant in front of the two rear admirals, an indescribable pride filled his heart. When Bai Ye and Smoker left the auction house and prepared to return to the naval base, several pirate groups participating in the auction followed behind them and surrounded them. Bai Ye said to Smoker, "It seems that there are a few who are not afraid of death. You will deal with them later." "Well, I have been holding it back for a while. Finally, a few pirate groups have come up for me to practice with," Smoker said expectantly. "I hope they don't die too quickly, so that I can have fun." Bai Ye had an inexplicable smile on his lips and said softly, "Don't worry, after a good show, it's time to close a net. You will be busy then." On the other side of the street, the Kirk Saint and Mapel Cecil Palace rode on the giants and strolled leisurely on the street. On both sides of the street, there were densely packed civilians kneeling, and everyone lowered their heads very low, fearing that they would be seen by the celestial dragons. Because the celestial dragons could deprive them of their lives and their originally happy lives with just a casual word. The Kirk Saint was riding on the giant, looking very excited. Giant slaves are also extremely rare in the sea, and it is considered lucky to be able to buy them this time. And because the giant was too tall, the view from riding on the giant was also very good, which made the Kirk very happy. Mapel Cecil Palace on the side did not seem to be in as good a mood as the Kirk. It might be because women's intuition is always sharper. Suddenly, she felt like she was being stared at by a poisonous snake, which made her feel palpitations. It seemed that something bad would happen soon, but she didn't know where this feeling came from. Mapel Cecil Palace frowned and said, "The Kirk, don't walk around outside for now. I don't feel well. Let's go back early." The Kirk was in high spirits at this time, and she couldn't wait to ride the giant slave for a few more laps. But Mapel Cecil Palace's status among the celestial dragons was much higher than his, and he didn't dare to go against Mapel Cecil Palace's opinion. "Are you feeling unwell? In that case, let's go back first." The Kirk was dissatisfied, but she didn't dare to show it in front of Mapel Cecil Palace. He had no choice but to vent his anger on the slaves, took out something similar to a remote control, and pressed the button on it. The inner layer of the collar on the giant slave's neck had small thorns, which were poison developed by slave traders. When it came into contact with blood, it would make people feel unbearable pain, but it would not be fatal. The giant slave's face suddenly turned red like a pig's liver, his body began to tremble, and his expression was extremely painful. One hand seemed to want to take off the collar on his neck, but when it was about to reach the collar, the hand suddenly stopped. Because if the collar was forcibly taken off, the collar would explode in an instant, and the power of the explosion was enough to break his neck and separate his body. The Kirk Saint looked at the giant's painful reaction, and seemed to have discovered other ways to play with the giant, so she pressed several other buttons. The giant slave's body kept shaking, and the shaking amplitude became larger and larger, causing the Kirk Saint and Mapel Cecil Palace riding on it to shake with the shaking, and almost fell off the giant. At this moment, 4 purple figures suddenly emerged from the crowd, and they rushed towards the Kirk Saint and Mapel Cecil Palace at a very fast speed. The bodyguards who were responsible for protecting the celestial dragons were shocked. If the celestial dragons were in trouble under their protection, even if they did not die in the hands of the enemy, they would be executed after returning. And their families living in Merijais would suffer the same fate. More than a dozen bodyguards stood in front of the celestial dragons, trying to stop the purple figures. 4 figures threw shurikens at the same time, and when the bodyguards touched the shurikens, their faces turned pale instantly. Where the hell is this shuriken? This is a bomb. Bang, 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 bang. 4 explosions sounded in succession, and the hot flames engulfed the bodyguards and the celestial dragons. The explosions resounded through the streets, and when the countless civilians who were kneeling on the ground saw the explosions, they were so nervous that it seemed as if their hearts had exploded. A terrifying thought came into their minds. Someone attacked and killed the celestial dragons in the street. It's over. The world is going to explode. At this moment, no civilians were still kneeling there stupidly. They all fled in all directions. The whole island was in a panic. On the other side of the street, Bai Ye and Smoker heard the explosion over there and immediately realized that something had happened to the celestial dragons. If something happened to the celestial dragons in the area under their jurisdiction, their responsibility would not be small. When Smoker was about to turn into smoke and rush over, Bai Ye's voice rang in his ears. You deal with the pirates following us, and leave that to me. Bai Ye's figure flashed and appeared in the air. Looking at the flames of the explosion, he chuckled and said, let's start. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Purple Ninja. The 3 pirate groups that followed all the way saw Bai Ye suddenly disappear from their sight, leaving only Smoker. They immediately began to worry whether they were discovered by the Navy. If Bai Ye went back to gather the Navy, they would no longer have the advantage in numbers. If they caused chaos and attracted the attention of the Navy headquarters, the situation would be even worse. The 3 pirate captains discussed in a low voice, why don't we take action now and kill as many as we can? I also think it's safer to take action first. Killing a rear admiral of the Navy headquarters is enough to prove our strength. Since we have decided, let's go. The 3 pirate captains hit it off and immediately ordered their men to take action. The next moment, more than 80 pirates suddenly appeared in the shops around Smoker, holding guns and firing at Smoker at the same time. The sudden sound of gunfire made all the pedestrians on the street dodge to the side, fearing that they would be implicated. When they saw that the person ambushed was a rear admiral, many people not only did not leave, but were quite interested in seeing how the rear admiral was killed by others. Even the pirates among the passers-by wanted to participate. A lone rear admiral was a hot commodity in their eyes. Even if they didn't kill him with their own hands, as long as they were participants, it would be enough to become a topic of conversation after dinner. When the bullet was about to pass through Smoker's body, the pirates' eyes flashed with excitement. They didn't expect that things would go so smoothly. The rear admiral didn't even react and was shot dead on the spot. It was a pity that one ran away, otherwise killing 2 rear admirals would be enough to double their bounty. The pirates watching on the side were excited, but also a little disappointed. If they had known that the rear admiral was so weak, they would have taken action long ago. How could these 3 pirate groups have a turn? Countless bullets passed through Smoker's body from behind, and then passed out from the front at a very fast speed, knocking down a dozen unlucky guys who were watching the excitement in front. A huge hole was shot in Smoker's waist and abdomen by the bullet, and the terrified expressions of the onlookers could even be seen through the hole. Then the hole returned to normal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Smoker turned around and smiled brightly. During the time he spent with Bai Ye, he was somewhat assimilated by Bai Ye. The 3 pirate captains were shocked when they saw this. Even a fool would know that the rear admiral in front of them was probably a natural devil fruit user. In the first half of the Grand Line, where there was no domineering, natural devil fruit users represented invincibility. Smoker grinned grimly and said, since you have taken action, then don't even think about leaving. He had been almost unable to hold back during this period of time. Today, it was not easy for someone to take the initiative. He must completely release his own pressure. As Smoker's mind moved, his entire body turned into a huge smoke, completely covering the surrounding streets of nearly 100 meters. In addition to the 3 pirate groups that took action, the pirates who were watching the excitement were all wrapped in the smoke. The smoke was very dense and visibility was extremely low. Even if the two were only half a meter apart, they could not see each other's appearance clearly. Smoker was swimming in the smoke like a fish in the sea. He could only see a figure shuttling back and forth in the smoke at a very fast speed. The screams of pirates kept ringing in the smoke, but no one rushed out of the smoke. The whole street seemed to be filled with a dirge of painful wails. On the other side of the street, when the smoke caused by the shuriken explosion dissipated, he could see more than a dozen bodyguards forming a human wall, tightly protecting the 2 panicked celestial dragons. Because the explosion was too close, several bodyguards on the outermost periphery were already killed. 4 purple figures suddenly disappeared, and a man in a purple ninja suit stood at the back of the giant's head, holding a short knife, and stepping towards a celestial dragon. The bodyguard threatened sternly, "Who are you? Don't you know that attacking the celestial dragons will lead to the pursuit of the admiral and the CP organization?" The Kirk Saint on the side was furious and said, "Come on, kill him. He actually dared to attack the great god. I must take him back as a slave and torture him every day." After that, the Kirk Saint took out a delicate pistol from her bosom and shot the purple ninja. But in the astonished eyes of everyone, the purple ninja just tilted his head slightly and dodged the shot. This further aroused the Kirk Saint's panic, and she shouted loudly, "Come on, kill him. What are you still doing here? Do you want to die?" Seeing the bodyguard in front of her shrinking back, the Kirk was extremely angry and shot the bodyguard in front of her in the head with a gun. When could the bodyguards have thought that the employer they were protecting would actually attack them? Without any defense, the bullet went through their heads. Scarlet blood splashed on the faces of the people around them. The bloody smell became stronger and stronger, stimulating the Kirksheng's already nervous nerves. "Go and catch that guy. If you don't come, I will make all your family members slaves." Seeing that the Kirksheng had said so much, the remaining 10 bodyguards had to rush towards the purple ninja in despair for the sake of their families. Mapel Cecil Palace frowned and looked at the Kirksheng with dissatisfaction, but seeing the Kirksheng's eyes were red, her whole body was trembling, and she looked like she was in a frenzy. She could only sigh, and said nothing more. It's not known whether she can get through this difficult time. When the purple ninja faced the 10 bodyguards who were not afraid of death, his steps paused slightly, and he suddenly rushed forward to the bodyguards with the short knife in his hand. With a sharp sonic boom, a purple figure flashed past the bodyguards and appeared in front of the Kirk Saint. The next moment, the 10 bodyguards seemed to be immobilized and stood still. Swish! As the purple ninja's short sword was sheathed, a blood mark appeared on the necks of the 10 bodyguards and gradually extended to both sides. The body fell straight down, already cold. The Kirk Saint looked at the masked purple assassin in front of her, and then looked at the miserable state of her bodyguards. She was no longer as arrogant as before. The whole person collapsed on the seat like a puddle of mud, with a dull look in his eyes, and kept shouting, "You can't kill me. You can't kill me. You can't kill me." Although Mapel Cecil Palace was a woman, she behaved much calmer than the Kirk Saint. Killing the celestial dragons will attract the pursuit of the Navy admirals, which is not a good thing for you. You can tell me what you want, and I will do my best to satisfy you. A sneer came from the mask, and Mapel Cecil Palace's eyes went dark, and she lost consciousness. Chapter 56. The celestial dragons were abducted. When Bai Ye arrived at the scene, it was a mess, with more than a dozen bodyguards lying on the giant in a miserable state. Bai Ye happened to see Mapel Cecil Palace being knocked unconscious, and the Kirk Saint was trembling. After seeing Mapel Cecil Palace being knocked unconscious, she screamed in fear. At this time, he was already in despair. He crawled backwards in a hurry, trying desperately to stay away from the purple ninja. Just when the Kirk Saint was about to despair, he suddenly saw Bai Ye rushing over and shouted loudly, "That rear admiral, come and save me. If you save me, I can agree to anything you want." Maybe the Kirk Saint had seen many life and death, and she was no longer as arrogant as before. She didn't dare to speak to Bai Ye in a commanding tone. The purple ninja also noticed Bai Ye's arrival and rushed towards S the Kirksaint, trying to kill S the Kirksaint before Bai Ye arrived. S the Kirksaint looked at the dagger getting closer and closer to her and closed her eyes in despair. The next moment, the sound of weapons clashing suddenly rang in her ears. Ding. S the Kirksaint opened her eyes and saw a scene that made him feel extremely relieved. Bai Ye held a sword in front of him. Perhaps seeing Bai Ye's ability to fight against the purple-clothed ninja, S the Kirksaint suddenly regained her confidence. The joy of surviving the disaster made S the Kirksaint ecstatic. Quick, you must catch him and make him my slave. I want to torture him to death. Bai Ye frowned when he heard this and ignored S the Kirksaint's words. Seeing Bai Ye's presence, the purple-clothed ninja seemed unable to kill S the Kirksaint. Moreover, it has been 10 minutes since the attack began, and the Admiral of the Navy will arrive in at most 20 minutes. It will be difficult to get away by then. The purple ninja made up his mind, moved his body, and formed 10 after images in the air at a very fast speed, just like a real person doing the same action. They threw shurikens at Bai Ye at the same time, and 20 shurikens cut through the air and attacked Bai Ye. Bai Ye waved the fengming in his hand, and a light blue slash of nearly 100 meters appeared out of thin air, exuding endless sharpness. Bang, 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 bang. The 20 shurikens exploded directly when they came into contact with the slash, and their power directly formed a large mushroom cloud. It was very conspicuous in the sky. Bai Ye reluctantly protected S the Kirk behind him. When the explosion flames dissipated, there was no trace of the purple ninja in front of him. Bai Ye looked up at the sky and saw that the purple ninja had escaped and took away the unconscious Mapel Cecil Palace. S the Kirksaint looked at the purple figure getting smaller and smaller in the sky and said angrily, "You are a waste. How could you let him get away?" Bai Ye's eyes flashed with cold light, and fengming swung towards S the Kirksaint, and the crescent-like slash instantly passed through the side of S the Kirksaint's face, and blood flowed. The slash went straight into the sky, splitting the white clouds in the sky into two. Bai Ye pointed his sword at S the Kirksaint and said coldly, "If you must seek death, I can give up this Navy identity and send you on your way." Listening to Bai Ye's murderous words and looking at Bai Ye's emotionless eyes, S the Kirksaint swallowed hard, lowered his proud head, and stopped talking. Because he knew that the Navy in front of him really dared to kill him. Not long after, Smoker rushed over here, after dealing with all the pirates over there. Smoker saw S the Kirksaint standing aside with her head down, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It's good to be alive. As long as the celestial dragons are alive, everything is fine. But when he looked again, the female celestial dragon was nowhere to be seen. Bai Ye said, "The palace of Mapel Cecil was taken away by the attacker." "What?" Smoker said in a lost voice. "The celestial dragons were actually kidnapped, and they were kidnapped in front of Bai Ye, which means that the attacker should have the strength of an admiral. The impact of this incident is really too great." Smoker asked, "Can you confirm the identity of the attacker?" There are basically only a handful of admiral level fighters on the sea, and most of those who have fought with them can recognize their identities. Bai Ye shook his head. "I'm not sure yet. It shouldn't be one of those famous strongmen." A new strongman. Smoker fell into deep thought. Things are getting more and more troublesome now. Bai Ye continued. Smoker notified all naval branches in the Sabaody archipelago to send soldiers to block the port and not allow anyone to leave. If anyone insists on leaving, they will be treated as murdering the celestial dragons and killed directly. Well, I'll arrange it now. Smoker knew how bad this matter was. Fortunately, one celestial dragon is alive and the other is abducted. If both celestial dragons died in the Sabaody archipelago, not only would he and Bai Ye be held responsible, but even Marshal Sengoku would probably not end up well. At this time, the news that the celestial dragons were attacked in the Sabaody archipelago reached Mirijoa and Marineford. After hearing the news, Mirijoa directly sent CP0 agents to the Sabaody archipelago to protect the celestial dragons. When Sengoku learned that the celestial dragons were attacked, he almost fainted and almost smashed the table with a hammer. It was a pity that Kizaru was not there. Otherwise, with Kizaru's fruit ability, he would definitely be able to arrive faster. So, he quickly asked the soldiers to tell the news to Aokiji, the only one who was unemployed at the headquarters, and asked Aokiji to rush to the Sabaody archipelago for support. After hearing the news, Aokiji also realized the seriousness of the matter and set off directly to the Sabaody archipelago. After arranging everything properly, Sengoku rubbed his forehead and thought in pain. Who dares to attack the celestial dragons in the Sabaody archipelago? By the way, isn't Bai Ye the one stationed in the Sabaody archipelago? With his strength, how could such a big mistake happen? Although Zenji did not doubt that Bai Ye attacked the celestial dragons, he always felt that something was wrong. So he called Bai Ye to ask about the situation. When Bai Ye informed Zenji of the situation here, Zenji finally breathed a sigh of relief. Things have not reached the worst point. At least both of them are alive, but one is in the hands of the attacker. Zenji was also quite satisfied with Bai Ye's arrangement. He immediately blocked the island to prevent the attackers from mixing with the people who left the island. This can greatly increase the hope of finding the celestial dragons. After telling Bai Ye that Aokiji was on the way, Zenji hung up the phone. Zenji was still quite confident about Bai Ye's ability. The only thing he didn't understand now was, which side did this new strong man belong to? Chapter 57, Lone Testicle Ninja. Bai Ye hung up the phone with Zenji and learned that King Zhi was on the way. He was ready to wait here and did not intend to leave. At this time, the two of them were lying on the ground with a fainted giant and dead bodyguards all around them. All the slaves purchased by the Kirksheng were kneeling on the roadside, trembling, and did not take advantage of the chaos to escape. There was no one on both sides of the street, fearing that she would be implicated later. The Kirksheng looked at the silent Bai Ye in front of him, and the order she wanted to say was on her lips, but she could only swallow it back. He wanted to leave this ghost place, return to his comfortable palace, take a hot bath, and then kill a few slaves to relieve his depressed mood today. But he did not have the courage to say it, because a painful wound on his face reminded him that the man in front of him might really dare to kill him. At this time, Bai Ye was thinking about how the plot should develop later, and what role he should play in it. That's right, the attack of the celestial dragons that happened before was manipulated by Bai Ye. When he met the celestial dragons at the auction, an idea suddenly popped up in Bai Ye's mind. Since Doflamingo wanted to use the celestial dragons to put pressure on him, he could also use the celestial dragons to achieve his own goals. By attacking the celestial dragons, martial law was imposed on the entire island, and the forces of the Sabaody archipelago were reshuffled through the dual forces of the world government and the navy headquarters. Let the 5 rules he had issued before be officially implemented. Similarly, all those who violated the rules in the past few days were arrested and killed. With the banner of searching for the attackers, Bai Ye didn't think any force would dare to stop him at this time. At that time, he would have the final say on whether those people were suspicious. After all, he was the only one who had fought with the attacker, the purple ninja, and was still alive. As for the purple ninja just now, Bai Ye exchanged it with the system store during the gap between leaving the auction. Lonely Testicle Ninja Sonic, exchange requires world source power. 1000 points. When Bai Ye exchanged it, he simply tested Sonic's strength and found that he was probably at the level of a vice admiral of the navy. Although he doesn't know the 3 colors of Haki, he is proficient in most ninjutsu and has many methods, so he can be considered a good helper. The price is also fair. 1000 points of world source power is roughly equivalent to the cost of Bai Ye to increase the fusion degree by 1 point. Moreover, Bai Ye also found that he could use the system to spend world source power to improve Sonic's strength. Bai Ye took a rough look and found that it would cost about 5000 points of world source power to increase Sonic's strength to the weakest level of admiral. This made Bai Ye choose to give up directly. Anyway, no one except him would fight Sonic head on at that time. He said that Sonic was an admiral, and others could not find Sonic to confirm it. Anyway, these people saw Sonic fighting with them, and then taking the Napel Cecil Palace hostage and escaping. No one would doubt Bai Ye because of this little thing. What's more, Bai Ye also saved a celestial dragon from Sonic. This is also one of Bai Ye's preparatory means to prove his innocence. Now that things have come to this point, no one knows Sonic's true identity. Bai Ye has a lot more room to play. After thinking for a while, Bai Ye took out a half palm sized cloth strip from his arms. There was a round black smiley face printed on it, with a slash from the upper right to the lower left in the middle. It was the cloth strip with the Don Quixote family logo that Leslie had given him. Bai Ye casually placed the cloth strip under the dead bodyguard, a place that was not easy to find. The discoverer naturally could not be Bai Ye himself. He would not provoke any suspicion for himself. At that time, it didn't matter whether he was discovered or not. It would be great to be discovered by others. Maybe he could put a shit pot on the Don Quixote family. Even if he was not discovered, or the celestial dragons did not believe that it was the Don Quixote family, it would not be a loss for him. This was also an unintentional act. With the strength of General Aokiji, if he came with all his strength, Bai Ye would not have to wait too long. When Aokiji was moving in the air, he took a step, and ice suddenly appeared under his feet, allowing him to take over and keep alternating. This was also the ability he developed to use the fruit to fly halfway. At least it is much less labor intensive than using the moon step continuously. Seeing Aokiji coming, Bai Ye stood up. General Aokiji, you are finally here. Aokiji first looked around, then said solemnly, Bai Ye, what is going on? Zanji Yuo just briefly introduced the situation on the phone, without going into detail. After Bai Ye explained the situation, Aokiji nodded approvingly, and it can be seen that he admired Bai Ye very much. After all, the two are Zifa's apprentices, and they are from the same school. Aokiji has also seen Bai Ye's strength and feels that, if nothing unexpected happens, Bai Ye will definitely grow into a general level combat force within 3 years. So his attitude towards Bai Ye is also relatively kind, without the feeling that the high-ranking official is crushing people. You did a good job. The other side will not kill Mapel Cecil Palace immediately after kidnapping her, so we must take advantage of this time to find her out. Bai Ye nodded seriously, thinking, if you can find her out, it would be a miracle. After Aokiji finished speaking, he glanced at the Kirksaint who was not far away, and a trace of barely perceptible disgust flashed in his eyes. If he was not the only admiral in the Navy headquarters, he would not want to get involved in matters related to the Celestial Dragons. Because the existence of the Celestial Dragons was the greatest insult to the justice he upheld. But now he could only suppress the disgust in his heart. Since he had to contact them, he could hide as far away as possible. Bai Ye looked at the slaves who were still kneeling below, walked in front of the Kirksaint, and said coldly, give me the controllers that control these slaves. They are also witnesses of this attack. I need to take them back to the naval base for questioning. Aokiji was shocked to see that Bai Ye dared to ask the Celestial Dragons for people, and his tone was still so impolite. If the Celestial Dragons were angry, I'm afraid Bai Ye would not have an easy time either. Just as he was about to speak to dissuade him, Aokiji was surprised that the Celestial Dragons, who he thought would be angry, did not get angry after hearing Bai Ye's words, but instead looked in his direction cautiously. Aokiji was too lazy to pay attention to the Celestial Dragons, so he turned his head and pretended not to see it. The Kirksheng found that Aokiji didn't pay any attention to him at all, and said unwillingly, I spent a lot of Bailey to buy these slaves. Bai Ye used his thumb to push Feng Ming out half an inch. The crisp sound of the sword made the Kirksheng feel that the wound on her face began to hurt again. Forget it, these slaves are gone, and they are not worth much money. The Kirksheng gritted her teeth and took out a dozen manipulators and handed them to Bai Ye. Chapter 58 My peak is a sea of stars. Bai Ye took the controllers for controlling the slaves, leaving the giant's controller behind. He threw all the others to the slaves below without even looking at them. Take your controller and go to the branch base to wait for questioning. The entire island is now sealed off, and all exits are guarded by the Navy. Don't think of taking this opportunity to escape, because it's impossible. If you try to leave the island and are caught, you will be charged with murdering the Celestial Dragons. A dozen slaves chose their own controllers. I don't know if they knelt for too long, or were too excited, but their hands holding the controllers couldn't stop shaking. Looking at Bai Ye standing on the giant, his expression was complicated, and he felt indescribable gratitude in his heart. I thought that, after being bought by the Celestial Dragons, I would definitely die in the future. But I didn't expect that now I have a chance to leave the Celestial Dragons. Although the Rear Admiral only told them to go to the branch base for questioning, he didn't say he would let them go. But this is still 10,000 times better than following the Celestial Dragons back to Mirajoa and waiting to die. Moreover, Bai Ye's last words seemed to be a warning not to let them escape, but in fact, they were hinting that the exit of the dock was guarded by the Navy, and it was not a good time to escape. The meaning of these words was basically understood by everyone, except for Esther Kirk. After all, the Celestial Dragons were gods, not humans. After the 14 slaves took the remote control, they walked towards the branch base silently without anyone watching. It's not that they didn't think about untying the slave collars after getting the manipulator and taking advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to escape. But at this moment, they all chose to believe Bai Ye's words. They gave up this, which might be the only chance they could escape in their lives. It might be that the moment when Bai Ye pointed his sword at the Celestial Dragons made them believe that Bai Ye might be their savior. That's why they made such a choice. Aokiji looked at the slaves who were walking towards the branch base in surprise. They didn't escape. They chose to believe Bai Ye and gave up escaping. In fact, when Bai Ye asked Esther Kirk for the manipulator, Aokiji understood Bai Ye's thoughts. Bai Ye wanted to save these slaves. For this reason, he even risked being severely punished, drew his sword against the Celestial Dragons, and forced them to hand over the manipulator. Aokiji once wanted to do this, but he did not have the same courage as Bai Ye. He thought too much and considered too much, so he chose to do the same as Garp and no longer have contact with the Celestial Dragons. Out of sight, out of mind. But Bai Ye's behavior taught him a new lesson. Aokiji narrowed his eyes and looked at Bai Ye with a calm face, thinking that his little junior brother must be extraordinary. Mirajoa is not far from the Sabaody archipelago, and the CP organization is more than 10 minutes slower than Aokiji. The people who came were wearing the uniform white suits of the CP organization and wearing various masks. There were 7 people in total. The leader was a man wearing a sun god mask, nearly 3 meters tall, and looked very oppressive. When they came, they did not pay attention to Aokiji and Bai Ye, but surrounded Esther Kirk Saint. The man with the sun god mask asked respectfully, Esther Kirk Saint, are you okay? I'm fine. When Esther Kirk Saint saw the arrival of the CP organization, her heart was finally put back in her stomach. Unlike the Navy, the purpose of the CP organization's existence is not only to carry out various special tasks of the government, but also to protect the world noble Celestial Dragons from harm. Therefore, the two have relatively more frequent contacts. Compared with the Navy, Celestial Dragons trust the people of the CP organization more. Seeing his own people coming, Esther Kirk Saint wanted to tell Bai Ye about his threat, but when the word came to his lips, he suddenly remembered Bai Ye's sharp eyes and the slash that cut through the white clouds, and he couldn't help shuddering. Forget it, it's better to have less trouble than more. At worst, I won't leave Mirajoa in the future. Esther Kirk Saint was scared. After confirming that Esther Kirk Saint was safe, the man with the sun god mask walked towards Bai Ye and the others. Admiral Aokiji, I'm a special member of CP0, you can call me 09. Member of CP0? The superior of CP1 CP9, the world's top strongman known as the strongest shield of the Celestial Dragons, whose main responsibility is to protect the Celestial Dragons. Like the CP organization that Bai Ye met before to protect Harris, it should be a member of 1 to 9. The strength is okay to deal with ordinary pirates, but it is not enough in front of Bai Ye. But this 09 in front of him seems to be much stronger. Although it is impossible to determine the general strength without fighting, Bai Ye guesses that his strength should be around the Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters. And such a person ranks 9th in CP0, and there are actually 8 people stronger than him. It seems that the strongest shield of the Celestial Dragons is really unfathomable. However, this matter can be understood by thinking about it. The Celestial Dragons have the most wealth and the greatest power in the world. Over the years, the Celestial Dragons have collected countless devil fruits, selected powerful devil fruits from them, and given them to loyal subordinates to take, so that they can protect themselves. It is normal to cultivate extremely strong subordinates from generation to generation. Even if the 09 in front of him is at the level of Admiral, Bai Ye can understand it. Anyway, the admiral level is basically your peak, and my peak is a sea of stars. There is no comparison at all. After Ling Jiu understood the general situation, he asked Bai Ye in a dissatisfied tone, "Why didn't you chase the attackers and try to save Maple Cecil Palace at that time?" In Ling Jiu's opinion, Maple Cecil Palace's status among the Celestial Dragons is much higher than S the Kirk Saint. He would rather S the Kirk Saint be abducted than the current result. Hearing Ling Jiu's questioning words, Bai Ye said unhappily, "Don't you have a brain? I will chase the attackers. What if S the Kirk Saint is attacked again? You will be responsible then. You." Ling Jiu was almost broken by Bai Ye's words, and the good cultivation he had developed over the years was almost broken. He didn't expect that a small Navy Rear Admiral would dare to speak to him in such a tone. But he couldn't say to her face that Maple Cecil Palace was more important than S the Kirk Saint, right? S the Kirk Sheng, who was standing by, felt as if she had eaten honey when she heard this. She didn't expect that the Rear Admiral was too much, but he still cared about her safety. Most of her resentment towards Bai Ye was instantly resolved. On the contrary, Ling Jiu, who should have protected her, was more concerned about the safety of Maple Cecil Palace, who was of higher status than him. The Navy didn't understand this, because they didn't know that there were also differences between the Celestial Dragons. But S the Kirk Sheng knew it very well, so she couldn't help but feel a little more resentful towards Ling Jiu. Chapter 59. You sit at home, but the pot comes from the sky. If Bai Ye knew what Ling Jiu and S the Kirk Sheng were thinking, he would probably laugh. Why didn't I go after them? Because I sent the attackers. How could I go after them? Moreover, Bai Ye didn't expect that S the Kirk Sheng and Maple Cecil Palace had such a status gap. When he ordered Sonic to kidnap Maple Cecil Palace, it wasn't because she was a woman and looked pretty that he had lustful thoughts. He's not an LSP. It was purely because Maple Cecil Palace looked smarter and S the Kirk Sheng was easier to fool. In order to facilitate the implementation of the plan, the smart one must be knocked out, and the easy one to fool must be left. I didn't expect that this idea would have an unexpected reward now. Ling Jiu was retorted by Bai Ye, which made him very unhappy, but he couldn't tell the truth to her face. He could only use other methods to deal with this little Rear Admiral in front of him. Ling Jiu then said sternly, "This time, the Maple Cecil Palace was looted in the area under the jurisdiction of your navy, and your navy must bear most of the responsibility." Seeing that Ling Jiu wanted to blame Bai Ye for the incident, Aokiji stood in front of Bai Ye and said dissatisfiedly, "It seems that protecting the safety of the Celestial Dragons is not the main responsibility of our navy, right? This time the Celestial Dragons arrived and did not notify the navy to protect them. Moreover, the people responsible for protecting S the Kirk Saint and Maple Cecil Palace were all organized by your CP, and they all died in the hands of the attackers. If Bai Ye had not appeared in time and rescued S the Kirk Saint from the attackers, the situation would have been even worse. You haven't blamed it on your poor protection yet, and now you actually want to push the responsibility to the navy?" Bai Ye looked at Aokiji, who was standing in front of him, with some surprise. In fact, even if Aokiji didn't say these words, he had other ways to get rid of the responsibility. After all, it is an indisputable fact that he saved S the Kirk Saint. Unexpectedly, Aokiji, who always didn't want to get involved in trouble, actually fought with the people of CP0 organization to protect him. This was something Bai Ye had never expected. But then, something happened that Bai Ye could not have expected. S the Kirk Sheng, who was standing aside, suddenly said, "If it weren't for Major General Bai Ye's timely arrival this time, I would have died in the hands of the attacker. I really have to thank Major General Bai Ye for surviving this time." S the Kirk Sheng's words almost made Bai Ye shiver. Damn, what's going on? Bai Ye suddenly noticed that S the Kirk Sheng looked at him with a little more gratitude and a little less resentment, and he was immediately puzzled. What does it mean? Is this Celestial Dragon scared silly? He actually spoke for me and was grateful to me. Or is he a masochist who got pleasure from being cut by the sword? Ling Jiu has the confidence to hold Bai Ye, the Navy Rear Admiral, accountable, but he is not so confident when facing the Navy Admiral Aokiji. After all, the Navy's highest combat power is not something that can be said casually. A strong man like Aokiji must be given a certain amount of respect, no matter where he is. In addition, after the Kirk Saint said this, Ling Jiu was even more speechless. Well, the master is thanking others. How can a dog like him bite the master's benefactor? Seeing that everyone who should come has arrived, Bai Ye said to Aokiji, Admiral Aokiji, shall we go back to the branch base now? Now that the dock on the island has just been blocked, they still need to conduct a search, which will also take a lot of effort. And Bai Ye also needs to kill all the people who have been more jumpy in the past few days at once. Aokiji nodded. He really didn't want to come into contact with the Celestial Dragons and the CP organization. Bai Ye and Aokiji had just walked a few steps towards the branch base, and Bai Ye seemed to suddenly think of something. He turned around and kicked the unconscious giant twice. How long are you going to pretend to be unconscious? I'm holding your controller. If you stay too far away from me, it's not my fault if your head is blown into pieces. Bai Ye's voice fell, and the giant who had been pretending to be dead for more than an hour suddenly moved. As the giant mom moved, several remaining bodyguards fell from his body. The half-palm-sized piece of cloth mixed with the bodyguard's bodies staggered down from the air, which was quite eye-catching. Ling Jiu flashed forward to catch the piece of cloth. When he saw the logo on the piece of cloth, Ling Jiu was stunned. Although they didn't have much contact with other forces on the sea, the Don Quixote family had always had exchanges with the Celestial Dragons. How could they not recognize the logo on it? Aokiji also noticed Ling Jiu's abnormality, glanced at the piece of cloth in his hand, and his pupils shrank slightly. One of the 7 warlords of the sea, the Don Quixote family? Could it be that this incident was done by that madman Doflamingo? Without knowing the identity of the attacker, everyone could only rely on a large-scale search to find them at Cecil Palace. To be honest, relying on this method, there is very little hope. However, the appearance of this banner with the Don Quixote family undoubtedly pointed out a path they had never thought of. Although this path may not be feasible, it is better than being like a headless fly now. However, because the Don Quixote family has a deal with the Celestial Dragons, Ling Jiu and Aokiji did not publicize the matter at the first time. If the people on the sea knew that the attack on the Celestial Dragons was by the government-recognized Shichibukai, the government and the Shichibukai would lose all their face. The two looked at each other tacitly. Without receiving instructions from above, this matter could only be investigated secretly. Bai Ye saw Aokiji and Ling Jiu's serious appearance, pretending to be calm on the surface, but in fact, they were almost laughing. Isn't this too smooth? Not only did no one doubt Bai Ye, but they also linked this matter to the Don Quixote family. If Doflamingo knew that he had intended to use the Celestial Dragons to suppress Bai Ye, but Bai Ye used the Celestial Dragons to put the blame on him, he would probably cry out in grievance. This is really a case of when you are at home, disaster comes from the sky. When Bai Ye and Aokiji returned to the branch base, there were only 2 guards left at the gate of the base. The others were taken out by Smoker to block the exit. 14 slaves stood obediently at the door, waiting for Bai Ye's arrival. In addition to the giant mom following behind Bai Ye, there were a total of 15 slaves. This time, Bai Ye directly took away all the slaves purchased from the sanctuary of the Kirk and the slaves he brought out. If Bai Ye was more shameless and auctioned these 15 slaves again, he could get at least 1 billion bailes in revenue. This is a pure no-cost business. If he was still poor before, Bai Ye might really be prepared to do this. But now, Bai Ye doesn't want to make these unscrupulous money. There are pirates and unscrupulous businessmen on 29 islands waiting for him to plunder. Is he still afraid that he won't be able to plunder 10 billion bailes? Chapter 60 Another Basin. The abduction of the Celestial Dragons has caused a huge stir in the Sabayodi archipelago. The Navy headquarters directly dispatched tens of thousands of naval soldiers, led by Admiral Aokiji, to surround the Sabayodi archipelago. Not to mention people, I'm afraid not even a bird can fly out. Among those affected, the most tormented, are probably the pirates and underground forces who happen to be on the island. These pirates who are already wanted, and those who hide their identities, because of committing crimes. They have to face the Navy's uninterrupted interrogation every day. They are afraid that their identities will be exposed one day, and they will be taken away by the Navy and imprisoned in the city of Push. They live in fear every day, not to mention how miserable it is. In fact, the Navy has thought about taking this opportunity to directly catch all the pirates on the Sabaody archipelago. This will at least make the first half of the Grand Line quiet for a while. But such behavior is likely to arouse the anger of the Four Emperors pirate group. If they really fight at that time, it will also be a troublesome thing for the Navy. After all, the most important task now is to find the kidnapped Mapel Cecil Palace, and other things can be put aside. But for Bai Ye, finding Mapel Cecil Palace is a trivial matter. If he really wants to find it, Bai Ye can just ask Sonic to send Mapel Cecil Palace back. There is no way to find it in the Sabaody archipelago. When Sonic kidnapped Mapel Cecil Palace, he took the ship prepared by Bai Ye at the port and went to a deserted island far away. The island was not on the record pointer and was discovered by Bai Ye by chance some time ago. It is very safe, and with Sonic's strength, even if someone accidentally discovered the island, he can deal with the discoverer. So Bai Ye didn't care about the search and rescue of Mapel Cecil Palace. It happened that during this period of confinement, Bai Ye could display his previous ideas. Out of the trust of Aokiji and Sengoku, the search work of Islands 1 to 29 and the Sabaody archipelago was all handed over to Bai Ye. After all, the two of them knew Bai Ye's strength well and believed that Bai Ye could handle these things. And Bai Ye did not live up to their trust. On the first day, he led the team to capture more than 200 people, including pirates, black-hearted businessmen, and a small number of bounty hunters. These were the people who were more active after Bai Ye issued the 5 rules. Some hid their sails, some fought in the streets, and even attacked the Navy. Bai Ye asked people to record their crimes one by one, and none of them was spared. During the arrest process, those who resisted were directly killed by Bai Ye at the scene of the arrest. Regardless of the injustice some people shouted, Bai Ye stood on the high platform, looking at the black mass of people kneeling below, and felt indescribable satisfaction in his heart. In Bai Ye's eyes, they represent Bai Ye and the source of the world. Among the people kneeling below was Bai Ye's old acquaintance, the owner of Doflamingo Auction House, Boyle. Boyle was no longer as arrogant as he was yesterday in front of Bai Ye and Smoker. He knelt on the ground, his fat body trembling, and he wanted to bury his head in the soil, fearing that Bai Ye would find him. He really didn't expect that Bai Ye, a rear admiral who looked like he had nothing special except handsomeness and youth, could kill people so quickly without even blinking an eye. During the capture process, Boyle saw with his own eyes that a pirate captain with a bounty of 120 million bailes was captured because he attacked Navy soldiers on the island. He thought he was strong and fought hard, but in front of Bai Ye, he was cut in half by a knife in the blink of an eye, and the speed was incredible. If this knife was cut towards him, Boyle didn't dare to think about it anymore. When Bai Ye was looking at the people being captured below, a very familiar figure suddenly came into his sight. Bai Ye raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. There were too many people to be captured, and he didn't notice that he had brought this guy back. Hey, isn't this Boss Boyle? Why aren't you busy today, and are you coming to the Navy headquarters in person? Boyle was almost scared to death when he heard Bai Ye's teasing tone. He hid so far behind, but was still discovered by Bai Ye. Boyle didn't even dare to raise his head and could only see Bai Ye's feet in front of him. Why don't you talk? Weren't you quite talkative at the auction house yesterday? Bai Ye pulled out the long knife from Quick's waist and gently tapped Boyle's sweaty cheek with the blade. Every tap was like tapping Boyle's heart, causing him to twitch all over. Lord Bai Ye, I was blind yesterday and offended Lord Bai Ye. It's all my fault. Boyle kowtowed like crazy, and soon his forehead was broken, blood was flowing all over his face, and he looked extremely creepy. But even so, Boyle still didn't stop, and was still kowtowing crazily, completely ignoring the wound on his forehead. The other captured people around were so frightened when they saw this scene, fearing that Bai Ye would come after them next. Isn't this too cruel? Bai Ye saw that Boyle was so afraid of him, and suddenly he had an idea in his mind. He asked Quick to take out an image Dendenmushi and start recording. Bai Ye said coldly, since you are sincere in admitting your mistakes, I will ask you a question. As long as you tell me the truth, I can consider sparing your life. Boyle was overjoyed when he heard this, and quickly promised, sir, you can ask as much as you want. As long as I know, I promise to tell you. I ask you, why did the Kirk Saint and Mapel Cecil Palace suddenly come to the auction yesterday, but our navy did not receive any news? Hearing Bai Ye's inquiry, Boyle answered quickly without any delay. The Kirk Saint was invited by Lord Doflamingo on the grounds that there were giant slaves, and Mapel Cecil Palace should have followed the Kirk Saint to buy slaves. After learning the news, at this point, Boyle glanced at Bai Ye and continued through gritted teeth. Lord Bai Ye, Doflamingo invited the Kirk Saint to participate in the auction in order to destroy your majesty and the Sabayodi archipelago and make the 5 rules you promulgated a joke on the island. This way it will not affect his business on the island. Since he has decided to sell Doflamingo in exchange for a chance to survive, he should sell it thoroughly and let Bai Ye know his sincerity so that at least the chance of survival may be greater. But Bai Ye didn't care about the latter part at all because he had known it for a long time. He only recorded the first half of the words and didn't record the rest. As long as CP0 and Aokiji watch this video and know that it was the Kirk Saint who invited Doflamingo, by then, Doflamingo will have to wear the shit pot. Chapter 61 The execution begins. There are 29 islands in total, from Shabayodi 1 to 29. In the square of each island, there are Navy soldiers holding video recording mushi, ready for battle. During the period when the Navy controlled the dock, the residents of the island lived in fear. Every day, they could see the Navy taking away many people, and in the past 3 days, at least nearly 1,000 people were arrested. In such a depressing environment, they were very concerned about every move of the Navy. After all, it was related to their own lives. Many onlookers gathered in the square, looking at the Navy soldiers holding the video den mushi, whispering, "Have you heard? The Navy will deal with those who violate the 5 rules today, so they specially broadcast the processing video here in the square for us to see." Deal. How will the Navy deal with it? Will they really kill all the people who violate the rules according to the rules? Hearing this, the people on the side panicked and said, "Not really, more than 1,000 people have been arrested in the past few days, so how can they kill all of them?" That's right, even if you kill 1,000 pigs, the pigs will still grunt. What's more, there are more than 1,000 people, and among them there are many pirates with a bounty of nearly 100 million. Can these people be killed so easily by the Navy? Some people kept speculating how the Navy would deal with these people. On the other side, Bai Ye was playing with the video den mushi in his hand. The video in it was not only what Boyle said before, but also the part where Doflamingo invited the Kirk to come. Boyle also told him about the underground business that the Don Quixote family was involved in, including drug smuggling, attacking allies, and plundering allies for slavery. More importantly, Doflamingo actually sold arms to the Revolutionary Army. If the world government knew about this, Doflamingo would be in trouble. In the eyes of the world government, the threat of the 4 emperors combined is probably not as great as that of the Revolutionary Army. Of course, this is from a strategic level, not a combat power level. And Doflamingo, as a pirate recognized by the government, is still providing firepower to the Revolutionary Army that is against the government. However, among the information Boyle told, there is a piece of news that seems inconspicuous. Doflamingo has been in frequent contact with a certain force recently, and he should be doing secret business. He knew this news because he saw family carters frequently appearing in the Sabayodi archipelago, and they were carrying a large number of goods in boxes, so he guessed it himself. He also provided several addresses that might be secret transactions. Boyle himself didn't know whether this news was valuable or not, but in this situation, he wanted to tell everything he knew. No matter whether it was useful or not, it was better to say it than not to say it. If other people were exposed to this news, they might not care so much. After all, Doflamingo dared to do business with the Revolutionary Army. What else could he not do? But when Bai Ye heard this sentence, he instantly understood what Doflamingo was doing. What certain force? Isn't it the Beast Pirates, one of the 4 Emperor's pirates? If you calculate the time, Doflamingo has now developed artificial devil fruits through scientist Caesar, and use this to trade with the Beast Pirates, and get a lot of money. This Doflamingo is really bold, and he doesn't do anything. Privately selling arms to the Revolutionary Army, offending the world government. Privately selling artificial devil fruits to the Beast Pirates, offending the Navy. directly offending the forces he relies on. He is really not afraid of death. Just as Bai Ye was thinking about how to maximize the use of the information in his hand, there was a knock on the office door, and the door was pushed open, and Smoker walked in. "Master Bai Ye, the execution time has come. Shall we start now?" Bai Ye said with a smile on his face. "Start, of course. It's time to let them know the consequences of violating the rules. If it weren't for the deterrent effect, Bai Ye would have killed all these people long ago. After 3 days of holding back, I can finally see how much world source power these days can bring me." In the squares of the 29 islands, the soldiers were notified and opened the image Mushi in their hands at the same time. A beam of light shot out from the shell of the image Mushi and fell in the air, forming a large light curtain with a length and width of nearly 100 meters. Almost everyone on half of the island can see the content on the light curtain. The first picture that appeared on the light curtain shocked everyone. On a small execution platform, there were 10 arrested people kneeling on it, and the soldiers who were carrying out the execution stood next to them. And below the execution platform, there were more than 1,000 people who were about to be executed kneeling. The screen was filled with dense crowds. The onlookers said in disbelief, "Is the Navy really going to execute them all? Isn't this too cruel? They are about to be executed. Won't they resist?" In fact, it's not that they don't resist, but most of those who resisted were killed on the spot. The remaining ones who were not killed were also seriously injured. In the absence of treatment, they can't live for many days. Moreover, they have to endure the torture of pain every moment, so it's better to be executed early and get rid of the sea of suffering. The picture turned, and a very young and handsome boy appeared on the screen, wearing a white Navy Rear Admiral uniform, with a cloak of justice fluttering in the wind behind him. It formed a beautiful picture. If you don't connect him with those who are about to be executed, no one can imagine that it is this sunny boy in front of you who leads the team to arrest those who break the rules. Bai Ye showed a very sunny smile and said kindly, "Hello, residents of the island. I'm the Rear Admiral in charge of the island's security, Bai Ye. I have not been in the Sabayodi archipelago for a long time, and I believe that there are still quite a few people who don't know me. But I promise that after today, you will remember my appearance firmly, and even remember every word I say. Because only in this way, when you face execution in the future, you will not be confused about why you are being executed." Although Bai Ye's smile looks very warm, his words made millions of residents on the 29 islands shudder. This young Rear Admiral is so murderous. After Bai Ye finished speaking, he said coldly, "The execution begins." The picture was frozen on the execution platform, and 10 Navy soldiers raised their long knives and chopped at the people being executed at the same time. 10 heads fell instantly, and blood was spilled all over the execution platform. At this time, Bai Ye's cold voice sounded again. "Those who don't follow the rules will only end up dead. I want to see how many heads you have enough to chop off." The next batch, another 10 people were pushed onto the execution platform. Bai Ye and other naval officers stood aside, watching everything happening in front of them indifferently. The execution scene lasted for 2 hours. Later, even the executioners had no strength in their arms, so they chopped the people half to death with their swords. The people kept wailing in pain, which made the already bloody execution scene even more cruel. New executioners were quickly replaced to prevent such things from happening again. Bai Ye did not appear on the screen again until all 1,123 people who violated the rules were executed. I hope this execution can bring you enough attention. Otherwise, the next time it will be your heads that will be chopped off. As soon as the voice fell, the picture suddenly disappeared, and all the naval soldiers in the square withdrew. Only those onlookers who were still in shock were left. After watching the live broadcast, everyone felt their necks cold, and subconsciously kept stroking their necks, as if they wanted to make sure whether the head was still on their necks. Everyone seemed to be still immersed in the horrific scene before. This is too scary. More than 1,000 people all died just like that. Can we still stay in the Sabayodi archipelago? Where else can you go if you don't stay in the Sabayodi archipelago? The Sabayodi archipelago is located at the entrance of the New World. As long as the pirates who go out to sea do not die during the voyage, they will basically go to the Sabayodi archipelago. It can be said that this location is unique. Even if you don't want to come, someone will naturally come here. This is also the reason why Bai Ye dared to implement an iron-blooded policy in the Sabaody archipelago. No matter how many people are killed, there will always be batches of people coming here. Someone reluctantly said, that means that we can only follow those 5 rules in the future? If you think you are stubborn enough, you can choose to violate them and try. That Navy Rear Admiral Bai Ye, at first glance, is extremely murderous. If you provoke him, you will probably lose your life. As soon as these words came out, a group of people were speechless. After a long time, someone said quietly, wait until all other forces express their dissatisfaction and Bai Ye can't bear it anymore. Then the situation will improve. This wait, it's unknown how long it will take. After the execution, Bai Ye smiled in his heart. This execution alone gave him more than 6,000 world source power, plus the small number of people he dealt with during the pursuit. The total amount of world source power obtained was nearly 7,000 points, which was a rare big harvest. Moreover, through the execution, Bai Ye also obtained nearly 3 billion bales of wealth. It solved the problem of the base having no money in one fell swoop. However, such an opportunity is indeed rare. If it weren't for the Celestial Dragon incident, the dock was sealed. These people would have escaped from the Sabaody archipelago before Bai Ye arrested them. How could they wait foolishly for Bai Ye to arrest them? However, this also proves from the side that Bai Ye's choice to join the Navy is not without benefits. In addition to obtaining world source power, by upgrading his military rank, he can also seek benefits for himself through the power of the Navy. On the second day of the execution, Bai Ye provided the video recording what Boyle said to Ling Jiu and Aokiji. This is the information provided by the boss of Doflamingo's auction house. You can take a look. The video basically contains accusations about Doflamingo's various crimes. Boyle told everything he knew, just to save his own life. Unfortunately, he knew too much, and Bai Ye would never let him live. If he accidentally said that Doflamingo invited the Kirksaint to target him, it would probably attract Ling Jiu's attention. So in order to avoid the possibility of implicating himself, Bai Ye could only send Boyle away. You need to be so cautious when doing things. When Ling Jiu and Aokiji learned that Doflamingo was actually in contact with the Revolutionary Army and the Beast's pirates, their expressions could have changed on stage. Ling Jiu questioned, Bai Ye, are you sure your video is real? Because this video involved so much that he couldn't determine the next move. If this matter is true, it must be reported, and compulsory measures must be taken against Doflamingo. Facing Ling Jiu's questioning, Bai Ye said lightly, I don't know if it's true or not. I just happened to get this video among the people I arrested. Besides, whether this video is true or not has little to do with me. If you want to confirm the truth, can't you just investigate it yourself? Isn't this exactly what your CP organization is best at? Aokiji heard this and calmed down a lot. He was no longer as excited as before. Although Bai Ye's tone was unkind, what he said did make sense. Most of Doflamingo's actions were related to the world government. The only thing related to the Navy was Doflamingo's transaction with the Beast pirates. But because Doflamingo was a Shichibuke recognized by the world government, even the Navy did not have the power to enforce the law against him. So this matter really had little to do with the Navy. Ling Jiu did not care about Bai Ye's tone. Compared to this little thing, he wanted to report these things quickly and let the higher-ups decide how to deal with them. And from this point of view, even if the Mapel Cecil Palace was really abducted by Doflamingo's men, it is not impossible. After all, he is really too brave. After confirming Doflamingo's target, the Navy quickly withdrew the garrison at the Sabaody archipelago dock. The ban on the Sabaody archipelago for a week is also a great pressure for the Navy. If it weren't for the Celestial Dragons involved this time, the world government supported the Navy's ban. Otherwise the various forces would have fallen out long ago. In addition to sending Akainu and Kizaru, Sengoku also sent the old man Garp to the New World to monitor the Four Emperors pirates. He was afraid that the Four Emperors pirates would take advantage of this time to cause trouble. Fortunately, the ban was not long, otherwise Sengoku would have wanted to pull Zephyr out of the training camp and send him to the New World to garrison the naval base. The lawless area of the Sabaody archipelago has changed into a brand new look. Under the 5 rules of the White Knight, no one dared to stand up and take the lead in violating them. Everyone obeyed the law, fearing to offend the Navy. When the Navy soldiers patrolled the streets, they all stood straight and proud, which was completely different from their previous timid appearance. This was the influence of Bai Ye. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Crazy Promotion. After Bai Ye live-streamed the execution of more than 1,000 people, his reputation spread throughout the Sabaody archipelago. Almost everyone knew that there was a Navy Major General named Bai Ye in the Sabaody archipelago. His methods were extremely cruel, and anyone who fell into his hands would rather die than live. As time went on, the rumors became more and more outrageous. From the original saying that Bai Ye personally killed more than 1,000 people, it became that Bai Ye personally ate more than 1,000 people. And the rumors were as true as they were. Even Smoker and other people who were at the execution site, after hearing so much, felt that the situation at the time might really be like this. When they saw Bai Ye, they kept looking at Bai Ye's mouth, wondering how such a small mouth could eat so many people. This also made Bai Ye's reputation among the Navy soldiers rise sharply. Whenever they heard that it was an order from Major General Bai Ye, they wanted to complete it as quickly as possible, for fear of provoking Major General Bai Ye and ending up being eaten. While this rumor was spreading wildly, Bai Ye was happily counting the world source power in his office. Congratulations to the host for achieving the achievement. Famous in the Sabaody archipelago. Reward. 2000 world power. Spread it. Spread it as much as you can. It's best to spread my bad reputation throughout the sea and help me achieve multiple achievements at once. When I have enough world power, I will strengthen myself and really eat you all. Open a long lost system panel. Host, Bai Ye. Template, One Punch Man, Saitama, Fusion Degree. 20%, World Power. 21,000, Fusion Degree 20% minus 21%, requires 1100 World Power, Special Skills, Emperor Engine, Armament Haki LV6, plus, Observation Haki LV5, plus, Swordsmanship LV9, plus, Summoned Character, Testicleless Ninja Sonic, plus, 21,000 world power. For Bai Ye, it is enough, and he doesn't want to accumulate it anymore. Directly and continuously increased the fusion points by 10 points. Fusion degree 20% minus 21%, requires a world source power of 1100. Fusion degree 21% minus 22%, requires a world source power of 1200. Fusion degree 28% minus 29%, requires a world source power of 1900. Fusion degree 29% minus 30%, requires a world source power of 2000. A total of 15,500 world source power was spent. Although the cost was high, the effect was extremely significant. The continuous warm current constantly transformed the body's internal organs, strengthening every inch of skin and bones. Bai Ye felt that his strength was growing exponentially, and there was an indescribable sense of power. Because the fusion degree was directly increased by 10 points, the process lasted for a short while, and this feeling gradually subsided. Bai Ye felt a little bit, and the strength of his skin was even higher than the strength of the armed color domineering before the improvement. This kind of enhancement is the most basic and the most profitable enhancement. The physical foundation becomes stronger, and the use of other skills is also enhanced in disguise. Looking at the remaining 5,500 world source power, Bai Ye prepared to raise the level of Armament Haki and Observation Haki. Armament Haki LV6 LV7 requires 600 world source power. Armament Haki LV7 LV8 requires 1,200 world source power. Bai Ye calmed down instantly after seeing the doubling of world source power. This required too much world source power. Bai Ye was originally planning to directly cultivate both colors of Haki. In this way, he could only raise the two colors of Haki to the same level. After all, he had to keep 1 or 2,000 world source power as a backup. For example, the Sonic summoned with the world source power this time brought great convenience to Bai Ye. Bai Ye tasted the sweetness. Armament haki is upgraded to level 8, and a high level method of using armament haki is obtained. Ryu Sakura, entanglement. Ryu Sakura, entanglement. Ryu Sakura is the name given to armament haki by the samurai of Wano country, which means flowing haki. By wrapping armament haki around oneself in a special way, the effect of releasing armament haki can be achieved. Normally, the use of armament haki is nothing more than covering. Covering the body with armament haki can strengthen one's own defense and attack. In addition to oneself, as long as the haki is strong enough, it can also be covered on weapons. If Ryu Sakura is used, armament haki can be gathered on the hands or weapons and released, directly evolving into substantial attack power or defense power. It can deliver a powerful impact to send the enemy flying, and it can also form a protective wall and even defend against invisible attacks. Is this how Wano country uses armament haki? Bai Ye activated armament haki, and suddenly a series of reddish annular air currents appeared, wrapping around his right fist. As the air currents continued to flow, it was like cherry blossoms dancing in the air. He stretched out his index finger and lightly tapped the air. An invisible small shock wave surged out, and the thick wall was directly pierced through like air. Bai Ye came to the wall and saw that there were no cracks around the hole made by the shockwave. The pierced wall was extremely smooth, as if it had been carefully polished. Is the power gathered but not dispersed? Bai Ye was very happy about this, and then excitedly upgraded his observation haki to level 8. But there was no prompt as Bai Ye imagined. It was just simply upgraded to level 8. Bai Ye didn't care too much about this. I was strong with or without it. The next thing was the lucky draw that Bai Ye had been looking forward to for a long time. Congratulations to the host for reaching 30% fusion degree. You can randomly draw special abilities of strong people in the world of One Punch Man. Drawing completed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the ability of S-Class Hero Zombieman. Infinite recovery. Passive. Cannot be upgraded. Infinite recovery. Can quickly recover injuries and physical strength. Even if you are torn to pieces, you can recover autonomously within a certain period of time. Fuck. Why is it not telekinesis? Bai Ye thought with some resentment. In fact, this infinite recovery is a very strong skill. Even if Bai Ye is beaten to pieces, he can recover after a period of time. If this skill is drawn when he is weak, Bai Ye may feel very happy. After all, this is a life-saving skill. But with Bai Ye's current strength, as long as he does not provoke the 3 admirals of the navy and the 4 emperors pirate group at the same time, he really doesn't think anyone can beat him to pieces. So, this skill is a bit useless. However, from another perspective, as long as Bai Ye doesn't commit suicide and is attacked by all forces, so that his attack speed is faster than his recovery speed, then he will have a hard time dying. Then I'm an indestructible cockroach? Bai Ye thought boredly, looking at the column of world source power again. World source power. 1600. After working hard for half a year, I'm back to the time before liberation. However, Bai Ye is still quite satisfied with the strength he has gained. Next, he can do whatever he wants. Chapter 63 Murder Notes. Under Bai Ye's high pressure policy, the Sabaody archipelago has become a harmonious society. You will no longer see 2 groups of people fighting each other on the street. When selling slaves on the island, you must report to the navy. Although Bai Ye has no way to reverse the slavery system in the entire pirate world by himself, he cannot allow the slaves captured by the slave ships by force to be sold on the grounds that it is illegal, and restore the normal status of these slaves and let them return to where they live. What Bai Ye didn't expect was that many of the freed slaves were grateful because of this move. On the way home, he spontaneously promoted that Major General Bai Ye was a good navy who adhered to justice, which greatly improved his reputation in various places. This is also an unexpected surprise. The Sabaody archipelago now seems to be calm and harmonious with people and animals. In fact, it is based on Bai Ye's strong strength that these lawless elements on the island can be temporarily settled. But Bai Ye is not going to stay in the Sabaody archipelago for a lifetime. He didn't want the Sabaody archipelago to start a mess right after he left. You know, the harmonious Sabaody archipelago can create nearly 700 million baileys of wealth for him every month. Of course, Bai Ye didn't keep the money for himself. He gave half of it to Zanjiuo, which solved Zanjiuo's urgent need in one fell swoop. After all, Zanjiuo also helped Bai Ye resist a lot of pressure from all sides during this period. This made Zanjiuo often say in front of other navy officers that Zifa taught a good apprentice. Regardless of his strength, this way of making money alone is worth learning. Bai Ye's idea is very simple. Everyone makes money together, and no one can escape. If something goes wrong, you have half of the money. If something really goes wrong, can you still ignore it? After all, the adult world only cares about benefits. In Bai Ye's office, Smoker, Quick, Tashigi and Ferguson looked at each other with puzzled eyes. Ferguson asked in a low voice, Major General Smoker, you are most familiar with Major General Bai Ye. Do you know why Major General Bai Ye called us here temporarily? Smoker shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Then he subconsciously wanted to take out the cigar from his waist. He felt uncomfortable without something in his mouth, but his hand just touched the cigar. Smoker remembered that this was in Bai Ye's office, and stuffed the half-pulled cigar back. Forget it. It would be too uneconomical to be beaten by Bai Ye just for smoking a cigar. Dashiki looked at Xiao Xiao on her waist, as if thinking about how to get Feng Ming back from Bai Ye, and Quick stood straight with a calm expression, not caring about the content of their conversation at all. In his opinion, what's the point of thinking so much now? When the time comes, won't we just do what Major General Bai Ye tells us to do? At this moment, Bai Ye pushed the door and came back from outside. Hey, I didn't expect you guys to come so soon. Ferguson asked when he saw Bai Ye. Major General Bai Ye, you called us here. Do you have something to announce? As Bai Ye's butler, Ferguson is several times busier than others, so he cherishes time. After Bai Ye sat down, he didn't keep everyone waiting, and said directly, I'm going to make a pirate ranking in the Sabaody archipelago. Pirate ranking? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. We are the Navy. It's awkward to make a pirate ranking. What's more, is there any benefit for us to do this? Bai Ye saw the confusion of the crowd, and explained with a smile, this is just to establish a ranking, based on the rules of the ring. In fact, we need to figure out why these pirates go to sea, for fame, for profit, and to be free from constraints. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Bai Ye was not wrong. These 3 points almost encompass the thoughts of most pirates. So we make a pirate ranking list, ranking the pirates, except the 4 Emperors pirate group. We can increase the bounty for the top ranked ones. This can be regarded as indirectly helping the pirates to become famous in the sea, right? Yes, in this way, it will indeed attract some pirates to participate. There are many pirates who want to become famous and become the pirate king. For them, the only way to become famous is to continuously increase the bounty. The publicity of this kind of selection is far less than that of the ranking list. Think about it. On one side is the bounty list, and on the other side is the ranking list of the strongest pirates under the 4 emperors, which is arranged by the Navy. Comparing the two, the ranking list issued by the Navy is definitely more eye-catching. Bai Ye continued, in order to attract most pirates, we can also promote the fact that we can become a top pirate in the rankings, or even become a Shichibuke. Tashigi asked honestly, Shichibuke? Isn't this only possible if the world government recognizes it? Does our word count? Stupid. We just need to let the people below spread the news and let others know that they can become Shichibuke by passing the rankings. We don't guarantee that they can definitely become Shichibuke. When everyone heard this, they thought, damn, they are trying to fool people again. The title of becoming the first pirate group under the 4 emperors is famous. Becoming Shichibuke means that you won't be chased by the Navy, and it's legal to plunder, which is beneficial. With these 2 points, I guarantee that most pirates can be attracted to participate. Bai Ye's words were quite reasonable, and he took the psychology of the pirates into consideration. Ferguson asked in confusion, Major General Bai Ye, this can indeed attract pirates, but is there any benefit for us? Bai Ye leaned back in his chair and said lightly, why not? In the past, when 2 groups of pirates fought, the winner could only get the treasure of the loser. Now, in addition to getting treasure, you can also become famous and get the opportunity to become a 7 warlords of the sea. This ranking is a catalyst for the civil war between pirates. In this way, isn't it a disguised way to reduce the losses of our navy? Hearing this, Ferguson's eyes lit up. Yes, why didn't I think of this? The more intense the pirates fight, the easier it is for the navy to sit back and watch you fight each other. Bai Ye continued, moreover, doing this can also obtain more information about the pirates and have a more comprehensive understanding of the pirates' strength. This will also be of great help to us when we go out to pursue pirates in the future. Smoker and others felt that what Bai Ye said made sense the more they listened. For such a thing, the navy only needs to make a simple ranking, and then they can quietly watch the pirates fight and reap the benefits. Lord Bai Ye's idea is really amazing. Looking at the excited expressions of Smoker and others, Bai Ye thought, once the strength of the pirates is ranked, I can send people to harvest from top to bottom. The stronger the pirate killed, the more world source power I will obtain. By launching a ranking list, I can harvest effectively and kill only the high-ranking ones. In front of Bai Ye's eyes, this is not a ranking list, but a murder note. Chapter 64 Zephyr arrives. As the news of Bai Ye's establishment of a pirate ranking spread, most pirates showed disdain for it. They thought that a pirate ranking by the navy had no persuasiveness. Only a small number of pirates participated with a try-and-see attitude, and the bounty amount was slightly increased. Although it has the effect of increasing fame, the attraction is not that great. The number of participants is still small. But when the pirates heard that the top few on the list could become Shichibuke, their attitude changed 180 degrees. Not only did they participate enthusiastically, but they became more and more ruthless when they attacked, often killing people in the ring. This matter soon reached the ears of Sengoku. After learning about Bai Ye's idea, Sengoku felt that what Bai Ye said made sense, and such a thing can indeed bring tangible benefits to the navy. Therefore, after Sengoku contacted the world government, he made some changes directly to the bounty list. In addition to the bounty amount, a row of small words was added on the side, belonging to the *th place on the pirate ranking, a certain pirate group. This move further stimulated the pirates' idea of competing for fame and fortune. The dispute became more and more intense. All the pirates on the sea knew that the navy had launched a pirate ranking. Bai Ye, who proposed the idea, also promoted it a little. Even the news reached the ears of the 4 emperors of the New World. It may be because the navy did not include the 4 emperors' pirate groups in the rankings, so it did not cause much response. For the 4 emperors' pirate groups, even if you are ranked first in the pirate rankings, you will still be destroyed if you meet them, so there is nothing to pay attention to. However, when this news fell into the ears of Red Hair and Beckman, they had different guesses. Beckman pondered for a while, and after a while, he said, the navy's move is to intensify the fight among pirates. Red Hair looked in the direction of the Sabaody archipelago and said silently, yes, once the rankings are released, many pirates will fight to the death, but the navy can't sit back and enjoy the results. What a good strategy. I really don't know what this sea will become in the future. Major General Bai Ye, Chief Instructor Zephyr is here. Quick pushed open the door and said excitedly. Hearing this, Bai Ye stood up from his chair. Teacher Zephyr, why did you suddenly come to Shampoo? I don't know about this either. Anyway, I heard from the soldiers stationed at the dock that they saw the warship of Chief Instructor Zephyr was about to arrive at the dock. Let's go to the dock to welcome Teacher Zephyr. Almost all of Bai Ye's people came from the training camp, so they were quite excited to hear the news of Zephyr's arrival. Not to mention Bai Ye, in the 6 months of training camp, Zephyr basically treated him as his son, and he felt that Zephyr was both a teacher and a father in addition to the relationship between master and apprentice. This time, when Teacher Zephyr suddenly arrived, he would definitely go to greet him. When the group hurried to the dock, Zephyr had not arrived yet. However, everyone was not in a hurry and chatted at the dock. Bai Ye instructed Ferguson, today, the soldiers on the island must strictly enforce the law, and no violations of the rules are allowed. Ferguson nodded and said, Major General Bai Ye, don't worry, I have arranged these things. Smoker on the side said confidently, Lord Bai Ye, after the last execution, basically no one dares to commit crimes in the Sabaody archipelago. In fact, Bai Ye also knew this. After all, the harsh methods he showed before shocked many people. It's just that Zifa teacher came today. Bai Ye didn't want to make a fool of himself in front of Zifa teacher. And Bai Ye and his group standing on the dock attracted the attention of quite a lot of people. Although, if you don't violate the rules issued by Bai Ye, no one will do anything to you. But this can never erase the impression that Bai Ye left in their minds. There is no way. After the last live execution, Bai Ye has almost become a synonym for cruelty and blood in the hearts of the people of the Sabaody archipelago. Someone trembled and said, even Bai Ye, the bloody butcher, has come to the dock. Is there going to be another big mess in the Sabaody archipelago? The person next to him said with a deep face, not only Bai Ye, but almost all the naval officers and officers on the island have come. If something really goes wrong, it is estimated that a large number of people will lose their heads again. The news that Bai Ye appeared at the dock swept the entire Sabaody archipelago like a storm. Almost everyone thought that Bai Ye was going to kill again. Thinking of the scene of thousands of people being executed together, everyone felt a chill. For a time, the streets that were originally bustling with people and flowing with people became empty. The shops closed directly and did not even do business. The pirates who went to the island to buy food and fresh water had just paid 1 million baileys. After hearing the news, they turned their heads back to the ship in the astonished eyes of the Navy soldiers and ordered their men to set sail quickly, saying that they should stay away from the Sabaody archipelago for fear of implicating themselves. Well, in less than an hour, the nearby island seemed to be deserted. There was not even a shadow of a person. Zifa did not let Bai Ye wait for long and soon arrived at the dock. As soon as Zifa got off the boat, he saw Bai Ye coming to the dock to greet him. His heart was warmed, and this disciple was not accepted in vain. But Bai Ye opened his mouth and said something, which made Zifa change his mind directly. Teacher Zifa, it has taken so long to come to visit your disciple. You must have prepared a gift for your good disciple, right? Bai Ye stretched out his hands and asked Zifa for a gift. Zifa had a dark face, looking at Bai Ye with a smirk on his face, and thought to himself, why don't I expel him from the sect? Seeing that Zifa's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, Bai Ye retracted his hand and sighed faintly. I guessed that the teacher might not have brought a gift, so forget it. But before Zifa could smile again, he heard Bai Ye continue. Smoker, remember, on July 17th, in the afternoon, Teacher Zifa owes his disciple Bai Ye a meeting gift. Smoker looked embarrassed. I was also a graduate of the Marine training camp. How do you remember this? When Bai Ye saw that Teacher Zifa wanted to go back to the ship, he quickly said, Teacher Zifa, I was just joking with you, but you took it seriously. You are getting more and more stingy as you get older. Zifa looked at Bai Ye in front of him and had an urge to slap him to death. Why did I ever think of coming to Shampoo to see this evil disciple? When the students following Zifa saw that Bai Ye, who was often mentioned by instructor Zifa as a very talented disciple and often used as an example to give them in class, looked like this, they all felt that their three views were refreshed. Chapter 65 Whitebird 2nd. Zifa brought the students from the Navy training camp out this time to let them do a practical assessment to capture the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line and let them practice. This time they passed by the Sabaody archipelago, so they came to see Bai Ye. Bai Ye and Zifa walked in front, and the others followed behind tactfully. Quick and Ferguson were also chatting enthusiastically with the people in the training camp. After all, as the leaders of the anti-white alliance, they were still quite prestigious. Zifa looked at the empty streets, and then recalled the rumors he heard, and wondered, you won't kill everyone on the island, right? Bai Ye was speechless. Teacher, look at what you said. Am I that kind of person? Zifa shook his head and said with emotion, whether you are that kind of person or not, it's really hard to say. Although Zifa is in the Navy headquarters, he still pays close attention to Bai Ye's information. And Sanjiuo often contacts him and tells him about Bai Ye. When he learned that Bai Ye was broadcasting the execution live on the whole island, he was subconsciously surprised. He didn't find Bai Ye so murderous in the naval training camp. If it were the old Zifa, he would definitely talk to Bai Ye. However, the current Zifa didn't think Bai Ye did anything wrong. He couldn't lead these people. You might not kill one innocent person among 1,000 people. It wouldn't be a big problem to kill them all. Zifa had to take the students to find a pirate group to practice with this time, so he didn't stay with Bai Ye for long. The next day, they set off again. Bai Ye sent Zifa to the dock again. Seeing Bai Ye coming out of the naval base, the streets were still empty. Before leaving, Zifa looked at Bai Ye in front of him and asked in confusion, "Are you really not going to have a fight with me, teacher?" Bai Ye waved his hand and said awkwardly, "Really, no need, you can go with peace of mind." Seeing Bai Ye's strong refusal, Zifa's curiosity was aroused even more. In the past, when in the training camp, before Zifa took the initiative to find Bai Ye ran up to Zifa to fight with him, looking like a battle maniac. Now, Bai Ye has no opponent of the same level as him in the Sabayodi archipelago. He took the initiative to come to the door, but Bai Ye was unwilling to spar with him. This made Zifa puzzled, and he remembered that Zenji Yuo had mentioned to him the commotion Bai Ye had caused in the Sabayodi archipelago during this period. Zifa subconsciously guessed that it was probably because this kid had not trained during this period and his strength had not improved, so he was unwilling to spar with him. After figuring this out, Zifa patted Bai Ye's shoulder and said with concern, "Bai Ye, for our navy, the most important thing is strength. The rules you are implementing in the Sabayodi archipelago are very useful and can help the navy solve a lot of problems, but these are not as important as improving your own strength. Only when you are strong can you better implement what you want in your heart. Don't put the cart before the horse." Seeing Zifa say so much to him sincerely, Bai Ye was moved and amused. He was moved because Zifa said these to him, because he cared about him. It's funny because Bai Ye refused to spar, because his strength improvement was too exaggerated. After all, it was a 10% fusion degree, which meant that Bai Ye's strength had increased several times compared to when he left the training camp. And this was accomplished in less than a month. Bai Ye was afraid that, if he started fighting, he would show all his strength and defeat Teacher Zifa with one punch, which would be too much of a blow to the old man, so he kept making excuses, and was unwilling to fight. Zifa obviously misunderstood Bai Ye's meaning, but Bai Ye couldn't slap the teacher's face in front of so many people. This was too cruel for an old man. So, Bai Ye had to smile bitterly and said, "Teacher Zifa, don't worry, I promise to strengthen the training." Seeing Bai Ye's sincere attitude, Zifa didn't say anything else. After all, there were still many of Bai Ye's subordinates and students here, and he had to save some face for Bai Ye. Zifa nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll leave. When I come back again, you can't refuse." "I know, teacher." Bai Ye stood at the dock and watched Zifa leave, thinking, "Teacher, you are asking for a beating. Don't blame me when the time comes." After sending Zifa away, Bai Ye began to think about how to deal with Doflamingo next. Although his current strength is enough to completely defeat Doflamingo and single-handedly defeat the Don Quixote family, but because he is a navy, he can only wait for orders from above. Bai Ye looked at the navy uniform on his body and smiled bitterly. This identity is also a double-edged sword. And these days, Bai Ye often received news from Teacher Zifa. He led the soldiers in the training camp and defeated many pirate groups. Zifa is quite experienced in training soldiers. When looking for opponents for them, he will start with the weaker pirates. Then, there is a process in which the enemy gradually becomes stronger, so that the soldiers can grow fully. As for Bai Ye and others, because the time in the training camp was too short, while others were still laying the foundation, he had already completed his studies and graduated successfully. At this time, Bai Ye saw a new message from Smoker that Zifa defeated the rising star of the pirate Donald with a bounty of 230 million. Bai Ye couldn't help but laugh. "Zephyr, you really don't mind being tired. You are so excited to see pirates at your age." After putting down the newspaper in his hand, Bai Ye suddenly realized something. He picked up the newspaper in his hand again, which showed the picture of Zifa's battle. In the picture, Zifa's fists were as black as ink, and his armed color domineering was obviously cultivated to the extreme. This is also the origin of Black Arm Zifa. But the problem lies in these fists. Bai Ye looked at the photo and subconsciously muttered, "At this time, the teacher's right arm has not been cut off, and the Seaston right arm has not been replaced." But compared with what happened in the anime, it seems that Zifa was leading the soldiers in the training camp to hunt pirates. When he went out, he met Whitebeard II, but because of his advanced age and asthma, he was no match for Whitebeard II. Not only was his right arm cut off by Whitebird II, but almost all the new recruits in the training camp were injured, leaving only Ain and Beansy. A terrifying idea suddenly popped up in Bai Ye's mind, and his fists clenched subconsciously. Damn, it won't be this trip. On a small pirate ship far away from the Sabaody archipelago, a fat man who looked nothing like Whitebird except for his beard and the big sword in his hand said stupidly, "Mom, these pirates are all dealt with. When are we going to find Dad to meet him?" From the treasure room of the pirate ship, an extremely sharp voice came. "My dear son, wait a little longer. After you do something famous on the sea, we can meet your Whitebird father." Chapter 66. Aokiji is shocked. Bai Ye looked at the newspaper in his hand and thought more and more that it was possible. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes. No matter what, even if it's not this time, I have to rush over to avoid the possible tragedy. Bai Ye couldn't accept that he let things happen when he knew the future development. But before that, Bai Ye hurriedly called the Den Mushi on Zifa's ship, wanting to remind Zifa teacher so that he could avoid Whitebird II in advance. In this way, perhaps the tragedy could be prevented from happening. But what made Bai Ye nervous was that no one answered the phone. Now Bai Ye knew that his guess was probably right, otherwise he wouldn't even answer the phone. "Smoker, come here." Smoker, who was in the office next door, suddenly heard Bai Ye calling him, and his tone was a bit hurried. This had never happened before. Smoker immediately realized that things were not good and hurried into Bai Ye's office and saw that Bai Ye was still holding the information he had sent before. Smoker asked nervously, "Lord Bai Ye, what's wrong?" Bai Ye raised the newspaper in his hand. "Do you know where Mr. Zifa is now?" "Chief Instructor Zifa?" Smoker hesitated for a moment and said, "The news in the newspaper is 2 days ago. There is no new news now, so there is no way to determine the specific location of Chief Instructor Zifa." Hearing this, Bai Ye threw the newspaper on the table a little irritably. "There is no specific location in this vast ocean. Going out to look for it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. It would be a miracle if you can find it. Unless there is something like a positioning system that can check the location of the warship at sea. But the technology tree in the pirate world is a bit crooked, and there are not many serious and useful scientific research." Thinking of this, Bai Ye suddenly remembered that the technology tree in the pirate world is not good, but there are still black technologies. Bai Ye's eyes lit up, and he asked Smoker, "Smoker, former admirals like Zephyr should have life cards, right?" Smoker thought for a moment and nodded. "Although I haven't heard the admirals say it, strong people like them should have life cards. Life cards are not afraid of water or fire. They are made by mixing one's own nails into the material. It is a kind of paper that represents the vitality of the owner. The pieces of paper torn from the same life card have the ability to attract each other. In other words, as long as Zephyr carries the life card he made when he travels, and the torn part of Zephyr's life card is left in the Navy headquarters, Bai Ye can find Zephyr's location through the mutual attraction between life cards. Yes, this is the most feasible method at present." After Bai Ye explained a few words to Smoker, he hurried to the Navy headquarters and asked Sengoku for Zephyr's life card. Because it was certain that something might have happened to Mr. Zephyr, Bai Ye used his maximum speed, not sparing any effort, and used the shaving and moon steps to the extreme, leaving only a blurry after image in the air. The people on the street could only hear the roar of air above their heads. It was like a cannonball exploding overhead, causing countless people to speculate. In a coating shop in the Sabaody archipelago, a white-haired old man with glasses looked at the sky, squinted his eyes and whispered, "Who is this strong man? He can actually explode the air with 1 foot. What a terrifying power." With Bai Ye's full strength, the journey that normally takes half a day to sail was shortened to 20 minutes by him. Because the situation was urgent, Bai Ye did not have time to pass the message through the guard at the entrance of the headquarters and rushed directly to the direction of Sengoku's office. The officers in the Navy headquarters could only see a black shadow flashing in the air, accompanied by a roar like thunder, rushing towards Marshal Sengoku's office. Damn, what's going on? Could it be that some pirates are going to attack Marshal Sengoku? Isn't this too arrogant? Rushing into the Marine headquarters alone and attacking the Marine Marshal? Are you the second Golden Lion? Thinking of this, the lieutenant general level officers were all panicked and quickly used the moon step to go to Marshal Sengoku for support. The remaining major general level officers mobilized all the soldiers in the headquarters to prepare for defense. If it was really an attack on the Marine Marshal, there would definitely not be only this one pirate. Maybe there was already an ambush of pirates not far from the Marine headquarters. Bai Ye didn't expect that rushing into the Marine headquarters directly would cause such a big commotion. But even if he knew, Bai Ye would still do it. After all, it was related to Zifa's life, and there could be no delay. Bai Ye is a very direct person. If you treat me well, then I will treat you well. Zifa treats him like a son, and he also treats Zifa as a father. Now that Zifa is in trouble, he must go to rescue him. When Bai Ye was still a few hundred meters away from the marshal's office, Aokiji suddenly appeared in front of Bai Ye. Aokiji put away his lazy look, looked serious, opened one hand, and countless ice spread out from his hand. I won't let you go no matter what. If you want to attack Marshals and GUO, stay here. Under Aokiji's control, the ice condensed into a nearly 100-meter thick arc-shaped ice wall in almost the blink of an eye, and its hardness was better than steel. Even if it was bombed with artillery shells, it would probably not be able to shake this ice wall without tens of thousands of shells. Bai Ye looked at Aokiji, who was ready in front of him, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew in his heart that Aokiji had misunderstood his identity and thought he was here to attack Marshals and GUO, so he attacked him. In fact, this can't be blamed on Aokiji. It can only be said that Bai Ye's speed is too fast, and no one can see his appearance at all. Even Aokiji didn't recognize Bai Ye's identity. In order to avoid wasting more time, Bai Ye had to explain, "General Aokiji, it's me, Bai Ye." Aokiji, who had had a lot of contact with Bai Ye, was stunned when he heard the voice. He could still distinguish Bai Ye's voice. The black shadow was Bai Ye. "What's going on? I really have an urgent matter and need to find Marshal Sengoku." Hearing Bai Ye's urgent tone, Aokiji realized that something might have really happened. Just as he was about to use his ability to remove the ice wall, he saw Bai Ye's right fist wrapped in light red domineering and punched out through the air. The next moment, the nearly 100-meter thick ice wall exploded, and Bai Ye punched a hole of more than 30 meters in the middle. Bai Ye went straight through the hole, leaving Aokiji with a dazed look. Aokiji looked at his hands and murmured in disbelief, "Just now I used all my strength to cast the ice wall, right? No, definitely not. I only used 3/10 of my strength. Yes, 3/10 of my strength." Chapter 67, Zifa's life card. There was such a big commotion outside. Zangiuo was not deaf. He noticed it immediately. He wanted to take action himself, but when he saw Aokiji suddenly appear and create a huge ice wall out of thin air, Zangiuo gave up the idea of taking action. Aokiji alone should be enough. But the scene that happened next made Zangiuo dumbfounded. A hole was suddenly blasted in the nearly 100-meter ice wall, and broken ice flew all over the sky. A black shadow flew out of the hole and continued to come towards him. Oh my god, even Aokiji couldn't stop it? Who is coming? Could it be that old guy Whitebird? Zangiuo didn't think about it carefully. After all, the enemy was about to hit him in the face, so there was no time. Just as Zangiuo suddenly burst into golden light, he suddenly heard Bai Ye's voice. "Marshal Zangiuo, I'm Bai Ye. I have something urgent to find you." Huh? It's Bai Ye. Zangiuo was stunned. The black shadow stopped in front of him. He looked carefully. Who else could it be but Bai Ye? At this time, Aokiji dispersed the ice wall and explained to the other vice admirals who rushed up that the black shadow was Bai Ye, telling them not to worry and to lift the state of combat readiness. This made the vice admirals of the navy feel relieved, as long as it was not an enemy attack. Zangiuo looked at Bai Ye in front of him and was immediately furious. "You said you would come, and you made such a big scene. People who didn't know would really think that someone was going to attack the headquarters of the navy." However, looking at Bai Ye's anxious look, Zangiuo knew that Bai Ye must really have something urgent to find him, and asked nervously, "What happened?" "Teacher Zifa is in danger. Marshal Zangiuo, do you have a life card for Teacher Zifa?" Zangiuo was shocked. "Is Zifa in danger?" "Yes, I need Teacher Zifa's life card now." to determine the specific location of Teacher Zephyr, and then hurry over. The Navy naturally has Zephyrs life card. Not only Zephyr, but all officers above the Vice Admiral of the headquarters of the Navy have made life cards. They are all placed in a tightly guarded secret room, and are not taken out at ordinary times. In the past, there have been vicious incidents caused by the leakage of life cards. A group of pirates hated a Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters who had captured them. In an accident, they obtained the life card of the Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters. So, using the function of the life card to find the direction, they took advantage of the Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters to suddenly attack when the Vice Admiral was capturing other pirates. In the end, the Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters was killed, and all the soldiers on the ship were destroyed, which had a great impact on the Navy. This incident sounded the alarm for ZNGUO, so from then on, no one's life card has left the Navy headquarters. Usually, they only use the life card to determine the status of the Navy at that time. Out of caution, ZNGUO took a deep breath and confirmed again, "Are you sure Zephyr is in danger now?" Bai Ye nodded heavily. "Before I came, I called Zephyr teacher, but I couldn't get through." Hearing this, ZNGUO realized that things might be troublesome. "Okay, then you wait here for me. I'll go get Zephyr's life card now." After resolving the commotion, Aokiji realized what was happening after hearing the conversation between Bai Ye and ZNGUO. No wonder Bai Ye made such a big fuss. It turned out that something happened to Zephyr. This kind of thing can't be slow. Every second of delay may affect Zephyr's life. What's more, Zephyr is still taking the trainees out of the training camp. If something really happens, the mid-level officers of the Navy will be out of service for 2 or 3 years. This is a serious matter. A few minutes later, ZNGUO rushed over with the missing corner of the life card and said solemnly, "This is Zephyr's life card. You must keep it well." Bai Ye took the life card and found that there was no obvious change, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seems that Zephyr's current condition is still okay, and he is not as critical as imagined. Then Marshal Sengoku, General Aokiji, "I'll be leaving first." Sengoku asked, "Can you handle it by yourself? Do you want others to help you?" If he didn't need to stay at the Marine headquarters, Sengoku would have wanted to go with Bai Ye. After all, he and Zephyr have been comrades for decades, and have an extraordinary relationship. After seeing that Zephyr's life card was fine, Bai Ye's nervous mood was relieved a lot, and his expression was no longer as nervous as before. He smiled and said, "I'm enough by myself." In fact, Sengoku still had many questions in his heart, but time was urgent now, so he didn't ask. Aokiji on the side said, "Bai Ye, why don't I go with you? Anyway, I have nothing to do now. It's safer for us to go together." ZNGUO advised, "That's good. If you two go together, you don't have to worry, even if you encounter the 4 Emperor's pirates." Bai Ye waved his hand and said, "No need. Admiral Aokiji is too slow. Going together will waste time." "I am too slow? I'm a dignified admiral of the Navy, but now I'm despised by a rear admiral of the Navy?" Thinking back to the fact that Bai Ye punched through the ice wall just now, Aokiji fell into crazy self-doubt. Is my strength really that weak? Or is Bai Ye, the rear admiral of the Navy, too strong? Before leaving, Bai Ye turned around and said, "The turmoil caused by the Navy headquarters this time was caused by me. I will bear all the responsibilities at that time." ZNGUO said nonchalantly, "It's not a big deal. Saving people is more important." Although Bai Ye caused a lot of impact in the Navy headquarters this time, it made all the Navy nervous. But it did not cause any damage, but played a certain training role. If the pirates really come to attack the Navy headquarters next time, Bai Ye has provided good experience this time. Of course, in Sengoku's view, this kind of thing will never happen. As soon as Bai Ye moved, he was wrapped in a piercing sonic boom, which attracted a lot of attention. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the sight of the two. Sengoku looked at Bai Ye's gradually disappearing back, and asked Aokiji with confused eyes, "Kuzan, how strong do you think Bai Ye is?" "I think his current strength is no less than that of Zephyr, who was a Navy admiral back then, and he may even be stronger. What do you think?" Sengoku said a lot, and found that Aokiji didn't pay any attention to him at all, and coughed awkwardly. At this time, Aokiji had successfully convinced himself that the ice wall was broken because he only used 1/3 of his strength. The reason why Bai Ye disliked me for being slow was because my fruit ability was not suitable for flying, and it had nothing to do with me. As a Navy Admiral, I'm still very strong. After figuring it out, Aokiji felt much more relaxed, with a smile on his face. Marshal Sengoku, what did you ask me just now? I said, how strong do you think Bai Ye is? How strong? Aokiji pondered for a moment and said confidently, not much, only about 1/3 of my strength. Chapter 68 Encounter. In the sea not far from the Sabaody archipelago, a dilapidated pirate ship was about to sink into the sea. There was a Navy warship parked on the side, which was the exclusive warship of the training camp. Zifa looked at the students who had just dealt with a pirate group, and became extremely embarrassed, and sighed imperceptibly. It was so difficult to deal with the Bailey pirates, whose bounty was only 80 million. Moreover, this was the result they achieved after nearly a year of training. Thinking about his apprentice Bai Ye, Zifa's face was even more melancholy. Alas, it is really true that people will die if they compare themselves with people, and goods will be thrown away if they are compared with goods. Recalling the happy time of teaching Bai Ye's strength is completely different every day, and there are new surprises every day. Let Zifa, the teacher, feel a sense of accomplishment. But now, when Zifa teaches these students, he feels a headache and can't teach them, no matter how he teaches. Everyone has 2 shoulders and 1 head. Why is the gap so big? In fact, it is normal to have a big gap. After all, they are not like Bai Ye. Teacher Zifa, are we ready to go back to the training camp now? A beautiful woman with smooth long wavy sea blue hair walked up to Zifa and asked respectfully, you have been out for half a month this time. You have also received enough training and know your own shortcomings. It's time to go back. Zifa said slowly, however, let's not go back to the training camp directly, but go to the Sabaody archipelago again. Ain asked curiously, are you going to see brother Bai Ye? When it comes to Bai Ye, Zifa's originally melancholy face showed a smile again. Seeing him is secondary. The main thing is to test whether his strength has regressed. I'm afraid that he has relaxed his own training when he was stationed in Sabaody. Ain pursed his lips and asked softly, Teacher Zifa, I want to ask, is senior brother Bai Ye really strong? Zifa smiled proudly, of course, with Bai Ye's strength, there is no problem, even if he can be a general. Is he stronger than Teacher Zifa? The smile on Zifa's face froze, and he coughed. Cough cough. How is this possible? Bai Ye is far behind me. Ain was obviously too naive, coupled with his admiration for Zifa. He didn't notice Zifa's strange expression at all. In an admiring tone, he said, Teacher Zifa is worthy of being the former admiral of the Navy. Hearing Ain's admiring tone, Zifa felt relieved. Although these students are now one step away from Bai Ye's talent, but they are at least better than Bai Ye in one aspect. Bai Ye would not speak to him in such an admiring tone. If Bai Ye were to say it, it would probably be, that's it? That's it? Teacher Zifa, is the former admiral of the Navy only this strong? My dog is better than you. I'm laughing. It can make Zifa angry to death. Every time they spar, if it weren't for his strong concentration, Zifa would have killed him long ago. I see it, my dear son, row to the east. An old woman who was only half a meter tall, holding a telescope in her dry hands, put it in front of her eyes, looking at the direction where Zifa's warship was. And a fat man who was nearly 7 meters tall on the boat, with his arms bulged, paddled hard, and the speed of the whole ship suddenly increased. Hey, why is the distance getting farther and farther? Looking at the gradually shrinking target in the telescope, the old woman put down the telescope. She was so angry that she jumped up and down, waving the telescope in her hand, and hitting Whitebird Second's ankle, cursing, why are you so stupid? This is the west, and that is the east. How could I give birth to such a stupid son like you? Listening to Miss Jin's cursing, Whitebird Second's eyes quickly misted up, and he cried, Mom, I was wrong, don't hit me anymore. Miss Jin looked at the warships in the training camp again and said excitedly, the person on that ship should be the former admiral, Zephyr. As long as we kill him, we will definitely become famous in the sea. Whitebird Second asked stupidly, Mom, can we go find Dad? Of course, as long as we kill that person, you can recognize Dad, Miss Jin said in a bewitching tone. Hearing this, Whitebird II became even more excited, and the sails in his hands danced out after images, like a rotating propeller. The speed of the entire ship doubled again, approaching Zephyr at a very fast speed. Just as Zephyr was chatting with Ain, a man dressed as an injured dart came forward and said, "Teacher Zephyr, it seems that a pirate ship has come from the west, and it is very fast. It seems to be heading for us." "Pirate? Coming for us?" Zephyr followed Bond to the side of the ship, and saw a pirate ship rushing straight at him at a very fast speed. It is estimated that it will directly collide with the warship in half a minute. Seeing this, Zephyr shouted, "Quick, drive the ship to the north." At the same time, he was a little confused about the situation on the opposite side. What does this mean? It's a suicide attack, using a ship to hit the ship. Is this what a human would do? On Whitebird II's side, Miss Jin hit Whitebird II's in step again, and kept cursing in a harsh and unpleasant voice. "Slow down. Slow down. It's about to hit, you idiot. You're pissing me off. Are you going to kill your mother?" Miss Jin's wrinkled old face was filled with endless panic. If he hit Whitebird II like this, he would definitely not die with his physical fitness. It's probably just a little dust on his body, but she herself is just an ordinary old woman in her 70s. If she hits like this, she will be a meat paste. Fortunately, Zephyr gave the order in time, and the warship deviated to the north a little, so the two did not collide, and Whitebird II's ship went directly through the previous position of the warship. But Whitebird II broke the oar in his hand, and it didn't work, and he still couldn't stop. In Zephyr's puzzled eyes, he moved away again. Zephyr is now a little confused about what the other party wants to do. Knowing that he is a navy, he still rushed towards him. He is not a good person. Zephyr ordered, "Ain and Bins, take the other students and stay away. I will take care of the pirates this time." Ain and the others believed in Zephyr's strength. In their opinion, as long as Teacher Zephyr was there would be no problems. For a moment, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and lightning snakes were wandering in the sea of clouds. The atmosphere was extremely depressing. The next moment, a huge black shadow fell from the sky, followed by a bright big knife, which chopped down heavily on Zephyr's head. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. Like a Fool. This sudden knife was as powerful as thunder, slashing towards Zephyr, and the shining blade reflected Zephyr's calm face. Facing this knife, Zephyr did not choose to retreat, but instead faced the knife. His arms were instantly covered with armed color domineering, and his purple-black fist swung towards the blade. Zephyr knew that he could not dodge. If he dodged this knife and let it hit the ship, it would easily cause damage to the hull. There were hundreds of training camp students on the ship. Once the warship was sunk, it would easily cause the death of the students. So he chose to take the initiative. Under Zephyr's full strength attack, the right fist swung out was like obsidian, hitting the knife heavily. Bang! The fist and the knife intersected, making a tooth-grinding sound, and dozens of purple-black lightning snakes splashed out with fangs and claws. Ain and others not far away felt uncomfortable in their hearts. What a great force. Zephyr was secretly shocked, and his right fist, wrapped in armed color domineering, was directly chopped with a deep white mark. He moved his body and returned to the hull again. At this time, Zephyr saw the enemy in front of him clearly, and he was shocked by this sight. It was too similar, whether it was the height, the big knife in his hand, and especially the two crescent-shaped beards. It was exactly the same as Whitebird. Could this be Whitebird's man? Whitebird wants to attack me. Thinking of this, Zephyr said in a deep voice, "Who are you to Whitebird?" When Whitebird II heard Zephyr's question, he didn't continue to attack, but stupidly responded, "I'm his son, Edward Weeble." Damn, Whitebird has a son? Why didn't our navy know this news? Zephyr didn't doubt the truth of this news for a while, because it was too similar, and from the fight just now, Zephyr felt Weeble's terrifying power, which was exactly the same as Whitebird when he was young. Zephyr continued to ask, "What about the white-bearded man?" Edward Weeble responded, Dad is in the new world, and Mom said that, as long as I kill you, I can recognize my dad, so you'll let me kill you, right? Hearing this, Zephyr almost cursed. What do you mean by killing me? You can recognize your father. Did I stop you from recognizing your father and son? Your family's affairs have nothing to do with me. Why are you looking for me? However, through the conversation just now, Zephyr found that the man who claimed to be the son of Whitebird seemed to be mentally ill. In layman's terms, he looked like a fool. But this guy's strength is indeed not weak. There are still hundreds of trainees in the training camp on the ship, and they are not suitable for fighting here. Zephyr's eyes turned, and he thought of a way. He shouted to Weevil, in fact, I can let you and Whitebird meet as soon as possible. When Weevil heard this, he immediately became excited and asked excitedly, really? Can I really meet my father? Zephyr smiled and said, of course, as long as you follow me, you can naturally meet Whitebird. Although Zephyr felt guilty for deceiving a fool, there was nothing he could do. For the students behind him, Zephyr could only resort to this last resort. As long as Weevil followed him, he would take him directly to Bai Ye and give him a mixed doubles match between master and apprentice, and then directly lock him up in Impel Down. Later, if Whitebird could be captured and brought to Impel Down, it would be a good opportunity for them to meet in Impel Down. This was not a breach of promise. Weevil didn't question Zephyr's words at all. He put away his long knife and said naively, since you can take me to see Whitebird, I won't hit you. Hearing this, Zephyr let out a sigh of relief and thought to himself, it's a good thing he's a fool. He's easy to fool. But just when Zephyr was relieved, a dry and small hand like a chicken claw suddenly stretched out from the side of the boat and grabbed the deck tightly. My stupid son, do you want to kill your mother? You are worse than a pig. Miss Jin finally climbed onto the boat. Her ugly face looked extremely terrifying because of anger. She yelled at Weeble. Before, she was standing on Weeble's shoulder, but Weeble jumped out of the boat and chose to attack Zephyr. She was unstable for a while and fell directly from Weeble's shoulder and fell into the sea. It took a lot of effort to climb out of the sea. Then he heard Zephyr's words to deceive Weevil, and Weevil believed Zephyr's lies, which almost made him fall back into the sea. Weevil saw Miss King and said aggrievedly, Mom, I was wrong. Mom. Zephyr was so scared that she almost shouted out. This old woman who was less than half a meter tall and had a sarcastic look in front of her was actually Whitebird's wife. Is there anything wrong with Whitebird's eyes? Besides, the proportions of the two of you are not right, right? If it was true, Zephyr couldn't imagine the scene at that time. After Miss King taught Weevil a lesson, she stood aside and pointed at Zephyr and said, kill this guy quickly. Weevil said in embarrassment, but he can take us to meet our father. Seeing that Weevil believed Zephyr's words so easily, Miss King was almost angry to death. If Zephyr could really take him and his son to meet, it would be a living hell. Miss Jin kept knocking on Weevil. Hurry up and kill him, otherwise, Mommy won't want you anymore. Hearing that Mom didn't want him anymore, Weevil was immediately scared and picked up the long knife and rushed towards Zephyr again. Zephyr's arms were also silently covered with armed color domineering. Since there was no way to avoid it, he had to fight. The two were about to fight. Although Weevil was big, he was not clumsy at all. In addition, he had a terrifying strength comparable to that of Whitebird when he was young. After more than a dozen fights, Zephyr didn't get any advantage at all. The dark arms trembled slightly, and several deep white knife marks appeared on them. Zephyr's breathing became more and more rapid, his chest kept rising and falling, and there were signs of asthma. But Weevil was like nothing happened, waving the long knife and slashing at him again. This is a true portrayal of the fear of the young. In addition, all the trainees in the training camp were on the ship, which made Zephyr hesitate. If this goes on, everyone on the ship will die. Zephyr shouted, Aang, hurry up and leave this place. As soon as he finished speaking, a nearly 3-meter long sword chopped down on his head, not giving Zephyr any chance to breathe. Under the violent attack of Weevil, Zephyr could only barely hold on, without even a chance to fight back. Teacher Zephyr, Aang and others looked at Zephyr's struggling appearance and wanted to help him, but they also knew that their strength was too weak. If they went up, they would only become a burden to Zephyr. Just when everyone was at a loss, a chuckle suddenly came from the air. Teacher Zephyr, you have to admit that you are old. Chapter 70, Crushing and Breaking. After Bai Ye got Zephyr's life card, he followed the direction indicated by the life card and moved forward at full speed according to the ability of the life cards to attract each other without any delay. Bai Ye spared no effort and finally saw Zephyr's ship not far away. He also noticed Weevil, who was fighting with Zephyr. Although Zephyr was a little embarrassed by Weevil, he finally caught up. The worst situation did not happen, and it seems that the battle between the two sides was not too long. It was only because Zephyr's asthma relapsed that he showed a decline so quickly. Seeing that Zephyr was fine, Bai Ye's nervous mood relaxed a lot, so he joked, Teacher Zephyr, you have to admit that you are old. Anxious Ain looked up at the sky following the voice, and his delicate face showed joy. It's senior brother Bai Ye. Senior brother Bai Ye, go and help Teacher Zephyr. Bai Ye smiled. Don't worry, I will naturally take action later. When Zephyr heard Bai Ye's voice, the tension in his heart was swept away, and he asked, why are you here, you little brat? I'm afraid that, if I don't come, I will never see Teacher Zephyr again. Looking at Bai Ye's smiling face, Zephyr was immediately furious and wanted to punch Bai Ye in the face. With Bai Ye around, Zephyr felt much more at ease and no longer acted as cautiously as before, for fear that he would not be able to defeat the opponent after using his big move, and he would have no physical strength and could only be killed. Zephyr snorted coldly, Humph, do you think your master's admiralship is for nothing? Open your eyes and watch. Zephyr's aura suddenly changed, and he looked as if he was 20 years younger. The dark armament haki covered his entire upper body. Facing Weevil's attack, he did not dodge, but directly took it with his shoulder, with his legs slightly bent. The huge force made the entire bow sink suddenly, causing countless exclamations. Then, Zephyr grabbed the knife handle with both hands, and suddenly exerted force, pulling Weevil and the knife in front of him. Zephyr shouted softly, smash and break. The armament haki of his whole body only covered the area from his fist to his wrist. The dark appearance was like a black hole, as if it could swallow all the light. This was Zephyr's strongest move. His fists cut through the air, leaving a trail of after images, and kept hitting Weevil's chest. Because the fists were too fast, they rubbed against the air and produced sparks, which suddenly turned into a hot flame, attached to Weevil's chest. For a moment, the air was even filled with the smell of roasted meat. Every punch that hit Weevil's chest left a deep fist mark on it. In less than 10 seconds, Weevil's chest was sunken, and blood kept flowing from the corners of his mouth. He looked extremely miserable. Weevil didn't even have time to react under the extremely fast attack. With the last punch, Weevil flew backwards like a kite with a broken string. With a heart-wrenching scream, Mistin was pressed under him. Zephyr barely controlled his breathing, and regardless of his old waist, that was almost sprained, he straightened his chest and walked in front of Bai Ye. Looking at Bai Ye's somewhat dazed appearance, he said with great satisfaction, see, this is the real strength of your master. Bai Ye was still digesting the scene just now, and stuttered, this is Fire Fist plus Pegasus Meteor Fist. This is too similar. Zephyr had a dark face and hit Bai Ye unhappily. This is my special move, smash and break. How about it? Do you want to learn it? Bai Ye's mouth twitched, thinking, what's the point of learning this? I can kill someone with one punch. Why do I have to throw so many punches? However, considering the self-esteem of the old man Zephyr, Bai Ye pretended to admire him and said, teacher, your special skills are really amazing. I'm a dull disciple and I'm afraid I can't learn it. Hearing Bai Ye's flattery, Zephyr felt comfortable all over, patted Bai Ye on the shoulder and laughed. Ha ha ha, although you are a little stupid, but your teacher is me. With my guidance, you will definitely be able to learn it. You have to believe in your teacher. Bai Ye looked at Zephyr's proud look and rolled his eyes helplessly. Well, I said you are fat, and you are still panting. When Ain and other disciples saw the enemy that Zephyr defeated, they immediately surrounded him and said in an extremely admiring tone, Teacher Zephyr, you are so strong. Yes, that move just now was so cool, I really want to learn it. Under the flattery of many students, Zephyr's smile became more and more intense, and it seemed that the pain all over his body was relieved a lot. Just when everyone was happy, Weeble, who seemed to have no life, stood up again and cried bitterly, "Mom, Mom, Mom, what's wrong with you?" Miss Jin was dead and couldn't die anymore. She was picked up by Weeble in a two-dimensional form, Paper Man, and cried in his arms. Well, being pressed down by Weeble's weight of more than 1,000 pounds, you can't say that you are an old woman in her 70s. Even an adult strong man can't stand it. But Zifa's expression was no longer as relaxed as before. What kind of monster is this? After taking his full strength crushing and breaking attack, he was able to stand up. It seems that he still has a certain fighting power. Zifa himself had difficulty even moving a large amount. In other words, if Bai Ye hadn't come, I'm afraid that everyone on this ship would have died in the hands of that idiot. Weevil looked at Zifa and the others. His eyes were bloodshot. Blood was still oozing from the corners of his mouth. His chest was sunken, and he didn't know how many ribs were broken. But even so, Weevil still had the strength to fight. Weevil was like a madman, roaring and shouting, "You killed my mother. I want revenge for my mother." Seeing this, Ain and the others looked at Zifa again, and the meaning was very clear, waiting for Zifa to take action, to get rid of Weevil. Zifa knew his own condition very well, and now it was difficult for him to even move, let alone take action. But Zifa's expression did not change, and he said in a disdainful tone, "This guy has been seriously injured by me, and he doesn't have much strength left. If I attack him again, it will feel like bullying the weak. It just so happens that your senior brother Bai Ye is here. Let him take my place, and you can also see Bai Ye's strength." Ain and others believed Zifa's words, and turned their eyes to Bai Ye. Zifa breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself, it was a close call. I almost made a fool of myself in front of the students. Bai Ye looked at Zifa's chest that kept rising and falling like a bellows, and his right hand was always on his waist, trying to straighten his back. He complained in his heart, "That's it, and you still have the nerve to say that you don't want to bully the weak. If you have the guts, just go up and bully him." This old guy is really getting more and more shameless. But Bai Ye never thought that it was after he became Zifa's apprentice that Zifa gradually became what he is now. Chapter 71 I have a knife that can cut through the sea. Although Bai Ye wanted to refuse to fight and let teacher Zifa fight again, he would make a fool of himself. But after thinking carefully, if he really did that, he would most likely be expelled by teacher Zifa. Well, since teacher Zifa asked me to fight, I have no choice but to fight. Bai Ye took a few steps, walked in front of everyone, and made a fighting posture. Zifa looked at Bai Ye's back, nodded with satisfaction, and explained to the students behind him, "Look, although Bai Ye's strength is a little worse than mine, he is also a general level combat power. Normally, you have no chance to see this level of strong confrontation. This is a great opportunity for you. You must seize it, and try to learn something from Bai Ye." Many students nodded like chicks pecking at rice, staring at Bai Ye intently. They wanted to see how strong this senior brother Bai Ye was, and how he could be called a strong man with the strength of a general by teacher Zifa at such a young age. Weeble rushed over like a madman with a big knife in hand, roaring non-stop, "Give me back my mother's life." Bai Ye chuckled, "Didn't your mother die because of you? If you want revenge, shouldn't you kill yourself first?" At this moment, Zifa and his classmates were all shocked. What brother Bai Ye said made sense, but not completely. After hearing Bai Ye's words, Weeble froze in place, his face full of confusion. It seemed that he really thought what Bai Ye said made sense. Everyone looked at each other, and someone whispered, "Brother Bai Ye, you can't make that guy commit suicide with just one sentence, right? Judging from the other party's IQ, this is not impossible." Weeble thought for a long time, but still didn't understand, but he was not stupid enough to really stab himself. Instead, he brandished his sword and rushed towards Bai Ye regardless of anything. "I don't care, you killed my mother, I will kill you, and avenge my mother." After that, Weeble jumped up from the boat, and the bright blade suddenly turned black and purple. In the sky, thunder roared, and countless lightning snakes fell, striking the water surface, splashing huge waves, as if forming a thunder domain. Weeble fell from the sky like a meteorite, and the blade was wrapped with endless wind and thunder power, and the whole space was filled with deafening explosions. Zifa's pupils shrank slightly, and his expression was solemn. What a terrifying sword. Is this the real strength of this fool? If Bai Ye couldn't catch this sword, the whole ship would be smashed to pieces. But Zifa couldn't make a move at this time. Could Bai Ye block it alone? Bai Ye narrowed his eyes slightly, shook his head and sighed. This trick is good for showing off, but it doesn't work on me. Ding. In the eyes of everyone's astonishment, Bai Ye faced the knife that seemed to destroy the world and just stretched out one finger to resist. Countless purple-black lightnings followed the blade and touched the surroundings of Bai Ye's fingers and then suddenly disappeared as if it had suffered a more terrifying force. The blade was only a few centimeters away from Bai Ye's fingers, but no matter how hard Weeble tried, there was no way to shorten this short distance. Even though the long sword in Weeble's hand had been bent into a C shape, it could not be pressed down any further. Zifa was shocked by Bai Ye's strength. What the hell is this? In just half a month, has his strength increased to this extent? Even if he took drugs, he is not so strong. The students' eyes sparkled, and they whispered, isn't senior brother Bai Ye too strong? Are all the admirals monsters like senior brother Bai Ye? Hearing this, Zifa's mouth twitched, thinking, come on, if all the admirals were like this, the sea would have been in chaos long ago. This Bai Ye is obviously abnormally strong. Just as everyone was shocked, Bai Ye's fingers slightly bent and then popped out, and Weeble flew directly into the sky like a cannonball. Bai Ye disappeared silently from everyone's sight, and the next moment, he appeared next to Weeble. At this time, Weeble was panic-stricken and shouted, my father is Whitebird, I'm his son, you can't kill me. Zifa was stunned when he heard it. Yes, this is Whitebird's biological son. With Whitebird's protectiveness, if you kill his godson, he will chase you for the rest of your life. If you kill his biological son, won't he go crazy? Maybe he will dare to kill you directly, even if you hide in the Navy headquarters. It would be better to arrest Weeble first, investigate thoroughly and then deal with him. This is safer. Having made up his mind, Zifa was about to persuade Bai Ye when Bai Ye drew his sword. In midair, Bai Ye smiled at Weeble and said, you stabbed me just now, and now I will stab you. Don't you think it's fair? Bai Ye grabbed Feng Ming at his waist with his backhand. Before the sword came out, a long crack suddenly appeared in the middle of the sky that was originally covered with dark clouds. Everyone suddenly felt a piercing chill, as if countless knives were pointed at them, making their hair stand on end. Bai Ye drew out Feng Ming, covered it with armed color domineering, and said lightly, I have a sword that can cut the sea. I saw a very long and dazzling light blue sword energy, like a bright crescent moon, falling from the sky and falling into the sea in an instant. Weeble was cut into two parts from the middle, and the left and right sides were separated symmetrically, with strong fear and disbelief in his eyes. The sea, which was thousands of meters deep, was split in two by the sword energy, revealing the soft seabed. You can even see the frightened sea beasts swimming frantically on both sides of the separated seawater, trying to leave this terrifying place. The seawater kept surging, causing waves of terrifying wind and waves, rushing in all directions. Under the beating of countless waves, even the Navy warships were in danger of capsizing. Fortunately, it didn't last too long. After a few minutes, the seawater returned, and the sea returned to calm again, as if nothing had happened. Bai Ye put away his sword and fell back on the boat. Looking at the astonished people, he smiled awkwardly. Sorry, I used too much strength. Zifa looked at the Feng Ming on Bai Ye's waist and recalled the last time he saw Bai Ye. He asked Bai Ye why he brought a famous sword, since he was not a swordsman. Bai Ye said it was for the sake of looking good. He was disdainful of this and taught Bai Ye a lesson. Good guy, it feels like this is not a decoration. And you are not a swordsman. You are a great swordsman. I didn't even notice it in the past 6 months. You hid it too well, didn't you? Hundreds of students stared at Zifa in a daze. Zifa had asked them to learn something from Bai Ye before, so they watched Bai Ye's fight very seriously. Now, they really want to ask teacher Zifa, you always want me to learn how to block the opponent's attack with one finger, or to bounce the opponent with one finger, or to cut the sea with one knife. Do you think we deserve to learn? Chapter 72 Magical World. Obtain 500 World Power Points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for killing Edward Weeble, successfully changing the plot to Weeble cuts off Zephyr's arm. Weeble becomes one of the 7 warlords of the sea, etc., obtaining 5,000 world power points. It can be seen that, if you want to obtain more world power points, the best way is to find a way to change the plot. Simply killing a strong man does not give too much world power points. At least the gains and losses are not equal. Although Weeble's current strength is not as good as it will be 2 years later, he is also a quasi-general close to the general level. Killing a strong man of this level can only obtain 500 world power points. It is indeed less. After all, there are not too many such strong men in the entire sea. It seems that I still have to take the initiative to participate in changing the plot, and the situation in the Sabaody archipelago has basically stabilized, and there is no need to stay any longer. After determining the direction, Bai Ye looked up and found that everyone around him was looking at him with extremely strange eyes. Even Zephyr was the same. "Why are you all looking at me like that?" Bai Ye asked in surprise. "Even if I'm really handsome, you can't keep staring at me like this. If you look at me again, I'll charge you. Look at me one more time, and I'll charge you an extra 500 baileys." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Many students turned their heads away embarrassedly, and even some female students blushed. This senior brother Bai Ye is really strong and handsome, but he is too shameless. However, it is this kind of Bai Ye that makes them feel not too far away. There is no feeling that they dare not even speak when facing a strong person. Zephyr asked curiously, "Bai Ye, who did you learn swordsmanship from? Why haven't I seen you use swordsmanship in the 6 months I taught you?" As a rare top-level strongman in the sea, Zephyr's strength has declined with age, but his eyesight has become more and more accurate. With the swordsmanship realm that Bai Ye just showed, he is definitely a great swordsman. And among the great swordsmen, he is also an extremely strong one. There are such strong men on the sea, such as Mihawk, the Hawkie, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and Shiki, the Golden Lion, both of whom are famous sword masters. With the sword in his hand alone, he can suppress all the sword masters of his generation. But how many years have these people practiced kendo? I'm afraid they have practiced swordsmanship for longer than Bai Ye's age. But if Bai Ye was already a great sword master before joining the training camp, Zephyr couldn't have failed to see it while teaching Bai Ye. But if you say that Bai Ye reached the level of a great sword master within half a month of leaving the training camp, Zephyr would not believe it at all. If it was really that simple, all the sword masters on the sea would have committed suicide. That's why he asked Bai Ye so curiously. Hearing Zephyr's question, Bai Ye raised his mouth and said, "Teacher Zephyr, do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" Zephyr curled his lips and said, "Nonsense, of course it's the truth." Bai Ye laughed. "The truth is, when I was heading to the Sabaody archipelago, I fell asleep on a chair, and then a swordsman with a bamboo stick in his mouth suddenly appeared in my dream. He called himself Atomic Samurai, and said that I was too handsome, so he wanted to teach me his lifelong swordsmanship, and then, Zephyr frowned and interrupted directly. "Then, you woke up, and became a great swordsman?" "Yes, that's what happened at the time." Bai Ye looked natural, and there was no sign of lying. After all, this is really the truth. The situation at the time was indeed similar to what Bai Ye described, but Bai Ye subtracted the part about the system in his description. Zephyr's face was as black as the bottom of a pot at this time. In his opinion, Bai Ye was just talking nonsense. The students watching around also opened their mouths wide, with disbelief on their faces. Are we listening to a fairy tale? How could such an outrageous thing happen on the sea? Although they all thought Bai Ye's words were too much, it was also ridiculous that Bai Ye became a great swordsman at such a young age. However, Bins believed what Bai Ye said and asked excitedly, "Brother Bai Ye, does that mean that we may also encounter such a thing in the future?" Bai Ye straightened his chest and said firmly, "Yes, as long as you sleep more and dream more, you may also become a great swordsman in one sleep, and become a strong man like me." As soon as these words came out, the students were completely blown up. Sleeping can make you a great swordsman. No matter whether this thing is true or not, just sleep first. If it doesn't work, it's just a sleep supplement. If it works, it's a big profit. Looking at the students who were eager to try below, Zephyr's face was as black as if covered with armed color domineering. "Are you all pigs? Anyone with a little brain would not believe Bai Ye's words. If it was really that simple, how could there be so few great swordsmen on the sea? But these next generation of middle and high level reserve officers of the Navy actually believed it. Moreover, they were ready to take action, and they were just about to make a bed on the floor and fall asleep right in front of Zephyr. Good guy, can the training camp course be changed to how to fall asleep quickly in the future? Everything is available after a good sleep, so why do we still need to train? However, when the extremely angry Zephyr saw Rain, who was unmoved, he felt a little relieved. Fortunately, there are still people with normal brains in the training camp. But before Zephyr could open his mouth to praise Ain, he heard Ain say in a disdainful tone, "Senior Bai Ye said that atomic samurai was willing to teach kendo because of his handsomeness. You all look ugly, and you also want people to teach you kendo? If you have time to sleep, you might as well train well." The smile on Zephyr's face froze, and there was a breath of air in his chest, which was blocked in his throat, and a trace of blood suddenly flowed from the corner of his mouth. "Destroy it. Destroy all of them." Seeing this, Bai Ye hurriedly asked with concern, "Teacher Zephyr, what happened to you?" Mild injury relapsed. "It's okay, it will be fine after a while." Zephyr looked at Bai Ye and asked seriously, "Teacher wants to hear a lie now. Tell me what the lie is." "Well, the lie is that I have been practicing kendo since I was in my mother's womb and have been practicing until now, including the 10 months in the womb. It has been 19 years. As soon as Bai Ye finished speaking, Zephyr excitedly grabbed Bai Ye's arm and said, "This is the truth. This is the fact. Everything you said before was a lie. Hurry up and tell them this is the truth. This world is so magical, no one believes the truth." Bai Ye looked at the abnormal appearance of Teacher Zephyr and was a little afraid that the old man would faint. He came to save Zephyr, but Teacher Zephyr would be pissed to death by himself in the end. That would be too fucking awesome. Chapter 73 Change of Plan. In the office, Bai Ye was arranging some things before leaving with Smoker and others. Now, a week has passed since the rescue of Zephyr. During this week, Bai Ye applied to Marshal Sengoku for travel and left the Sabaody archipelago. After all, he now has the money, and the branch of Adam can also come in handy. Go to the Seven Water City, which has the best shipbuilding technology in the world, to build a warship of his own. A warship that people can associate with Bai Ye when they see it, instead of always using the standard warship of the Rear Admiral. But this is only one of the purposes of Bai Ye's trip this time. Another purpose is to find a suitable famous sword, at least a famous sword, that belongs to the 21st work of the Great Blade. Feng Ming in his hand is no longer suitable for him to use. Although, for the strong, weapons only play a role of icing on the cake. However, when fighting with Weeble last time, Bai Ye used the armed color domineering to cover the sword body, not to enhance the power of the sword, but to protect Feng Ming. Otherwise, once Zhenhe came out, Feng Ming would be directly shattered. Bai Ye was too strong, and it couldn't stand it at all. So changing the sword was also Bai Ye's purpose for this trip. After arranging everything, Bai Ye prepared to take Tashiji and Quick away, leaving Smoker and Ferguson behind. This was also Bai Ye's arrangement after some thought. Ferguson had managed the Sabaody archipelago in an orderly manner during this period, allowing Bai Ye to live a comfortable hands-off life as a shopkeeper, so it was naturally impossible for him to leave. And Smoker was the strongest fighting force on the island except Bai Ye, responsible for suppressing guys who might cause trouble. Bringing Tashiji was naturally for the convenience of choosing a famous sword. As for Quick, he was just a coolie. Bai Ye originally wanted to visit Teacher Zephyr before leaving, but Zephyr clearly refused, saying that seeing Bai Ye would aggravate his injuries and was not conducive to recovery. He also said that it would be better not to meet again this year and wait until later. Bai Ye didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he had to give up the idea of visiting. Zephyr is really afraid of Bai Ye now. If Bai Ye comes to the training camp and talks nonsense again, the Navy elite training camp can really be changed into a Navy sleeping camp all day. So it's better not to see him. But just when Bai Ye was about to leave, Aokiji unexpectedly appeared in Bai Ye's office and kept Bai Ye on the grounds that he had a new task. Before Aokiji could speak, Bai Ye said a lot of things. "Admiral Aokiji, what happened again? Look, my vacation slip has been approved, and I'm ready to leave. If I stay to work, do I have to pay overtime? Of course, the vacation time cannot be changed, and it's better to extend it. We can't work for nothing, right? Aokiji looked at Bai Ye with surprise. At this moment, he saw the shadow of Kizaru in Bai Ye. Whether it's the tone or the content of the speech, they are so similar. This is not Kizaru pretending to be Bai Ye, right? Admiral Aokiji. Admiral Aokiji. What's wrong with you? Bai Ye stretched out his hand and waved it in front of Aokiji's eyes, which pulled Aokiji back from his fantasy. Aokiji coughed lightly and said, I'm fine. I came here this time to tell you that the last matter has a result. Bai Ye was stunned. The last matter? The matter of the celestial dragons? Aokiji nodded and said, it's the matter of the celestial dragons. Wasn't the Don Quixote family involved last time? Yeah, but aren't they the 7 warlords of the sea? Investigating such matters shouldn't be handled by the world government. What does it have to do with our navy? Aokiji hesitated and said, it seems that CP0 has investigated that the Don Quixote family did have a transaction with the Beast's pirates, and that the two sides will have a transaction in the near future, and the location is around the Sabayodi archipelago. So, what the world government means is that our Navy and CP organization will take action together to secretly capture the members of the Don Quixote family and interrogate them about the disappearance of Persists' palace. Damn, if Aokiji hadn't mentioned it, Bai Ye would have forgotten that Persists' palace was still being held by Sonic. Bai Ye asked calmly, have they found out the exact location of the transaction? Based on their observations over the past few days, they have roughly identified 3 islands that may be used for transactions: Jill Island, Watan Island, and Saint Island. At that time, the world government will be responsible for Jill Island, and our navy will be responsible for the remaining 2 islands. Once we find that a transaction has occurred between the 2 parties, we will immediately notify each other and try to capture them as soon as possible. Bai Ye now understands that, although the world government has begun to suspect the Don Quixote family, it is not easy to take action without solid evidence. After all, Doflamingo's identity is rather special, and he cannot be investigated openly. Therefore, he plans to arrest a few Don Quixote family cadres first to understand the specific situation. The Navy is the toolman of the world government to cover up a real purpose. Let Doflamingo think that they originally came to capture the Beast's pirates. It was just by chance that they discovered the transaction between the Don Quixote family and the Beast's pirates. However, Bai Ye still doesn't understand a little. But, what does this matter have to do with me, Bai Ye? There are so many vice admirals in the Navy headquarters who can't be sent. Moreover, this operation also has Aokiji to support it. As long as Kaido does not come to trade in person, there will be no risk of failure. Why do you have to drag me in? I'm in a hurry to build ships and change swords. Aokiji explained helplessly. Who made you a participant in the last incident? And you are not weak, and you are stationed in the Sabayodi archipelago. Who else can I find if not you? Bai Ye has 3 points of my strength, which is indeed not weak. This is Aokiji's true thought. What you said makes sense. Bai Ye said slowly. Maybe the matter of Maple's Cecil Palace can be resolved in this operation. Isn't the world government looking for Maple's Cecil Palace? After confirming the trading island, Bai Ye asked Sonic to secretly put Maple's Cecil Palace into their trading location. Come and catch the person red-handed. By then, Doflamingo will have a lot of mouths on his body, and I'm afraid he can't explain it clearly. If the Don Quixote family can really be solved by relying on this incident, it can also be regarded as a change of a major plot point in the original work, and the world source power that can be obtained will definitely be not small. There is a lot of potential in this matter. No, I must participate in this operation in order to avoid unexpected mistakes. Aokiji saw Bai Ye frowning and thinking hard, thinking that Bai Ye was not very willing to participate in this operation. Come to think of it, everyone was going to take a vacation, suddenly notifying others to cancel their vacation and prepare to participate in the operation. Moreover, this operation also involves the big trouble of the celestial dragons. I'm afraid that no one would feel comfortable in their hearts Out of admiration for Bai Ye, Aokiji hesitated and said, "Bai Ye, if you really don't want to participate in this operation, I can apply to Marshal Sengoku to meet your previous request." As soon as Aokiji finished speaking, he heard Bai Ye righteously say, "Obeying orders is the first priority of a soldier. How could I be unwilling? Besides, as a Rear Admiral of the Navy, it is also my duty to make some sacrifices for the Navy. It's just a small vacation. It's no big deal if I don't take a vacation. If everyone in the Navy is self-centered, lazy, and free, and unwilling to work for the Navy, how can our Navy maintain justice on the sea? So, I must be involved in this operation. If not, I will go to Marshal Sengoku for it." After hearing Bai Ye's words, Aokiji was dumbfounded. "Brother, you are a chameleon, right? If there is a video record of the Den Mushi, Aokiji really wants Bai Ye to see his face a few minutes ago. Who would have thought that these two completely opposite sentences could be said from the same person, and the interval between them was only a few minutes?" When Aokiji heard the second half, his face turned red. He reasonably suspected that Byakuya was making a veiled accusation. After all, among the 3 admirals of the Navy, he was the laziest and freest, and he was afraid that something would happen to him. Unfortunately, he had no evidence. He couldn't admit to his face that he was lazy, right? As for Kizaru, who was also an admiral of the Navy, there were some differences between him and Aokiji. Kizaru was lazy, but as long as you got the salary, he, the 4 emperors, would dare to touch you. In comparison, Aokiji was more like a salted fish. Aokiji looked at Byakuya with an expression that said, "If you don't take me with you, I will fight you to the death." Aokiji said with a headache, Okay, this time you will take charge of Saint Island. Tonight, you will lead the ambush. Don't bring too many people, just strong ones." Bai Ye nodded heavily. "I will do it. Don't worry, we will definitely find the Mapel Cecil Palace this time." Aokiji sighed. "I hope so." However, Bai Ye did not plan to bring anyone with him this time. He went to Saint Island alone. For him, too many people would be more troublesome and not conducive to the implementation of his plan. For things like kidnapping the celestial dragons, the fewer people who know about it, the better. After all, they are not the characters summoned by Bai Ye, and they can be 100% sure that they will not betray. After Bai Ye arrived at Saint Island, he first observed the surroundings and confirmed that there were no other people nearby. Then he notified Sonic to come and meet. To be on the safe side, Sonic took off his iconic purple clothes this time and put on the uniform of a Navy soldier. The mask on his face was also taken off, revealing a face similar to that of the 2 pillars. By then, even if he is discovered by Aokiji and the world government, Bai Ye will be able to cover it up for him. When Sonic saw Bai Ye, he respectfully said, "Lord Bai Ye, how is Mapel Cecil Palace now?" "Still in a coma. He should wake up in a while." Bai Ye was stunned for a moment and asked, "It's been almost a month. Why hasn't he woken up yet? Did you hit him so hard back then?" He hadn't eaten for so long. He must have starved to death. If Mapel Cecil Palace died, it would still have a significant impact on Bai Ye's plan. Seeing that Bai Ye had misunderstood his meaning, Sonic quickly explained, "It's like this. After that woman woke up, she was noisy and troublesome. I was afraid that she would attract the attention of passing ships, so every time she woke up, I would knock her out again. Then has she not eaten for so long? I just caught some wild animal meat and roasted it for her. This woman didn't eat it before, but later she ate it because she was very hungry. Then I waited for her to finish eating and knocked her out again. This has been going on until now." Hearing this, Bai Ye secretly smacked his lips. What a pitiful woman. How can people still live like this? And this Sonic, which normal man can do such a thing to a woman? Is he still a man? Wait, Bai Ye suddenly remembered something. The Sonic he summoned was in a state of orchardism, and it seemed that he was indeed not a normal man. Then this matter could be explained. Although Sonic's methods were extremely cruel, it was not without benefits. At least, until now, the Mapel Cecil Palace still didn't know who kidnapped her. After Bai Ye told Sonic about the plan, he asked Sonic to be ready to move at any time. Now everything is ready, just waiting to see the Don Quixote family and the Beast's pirates appear. 3 days later, the two ships set off from the New World and Recrosa respectively, and headed for the Sabaody archipelago. In fact, before the trading ship left, Doflamingo had already noticed that something was wrong. His actions in all aspects seemed to be under surveillance. This feeling of being watched was very weak, but the cautious Doflamingo did not ignore this feeling. He also sent people to investigate, wanting to confirm whether someone was really targeting him. But in the end, nothing was found. If it weren't for the fact that the transaction time had been agreed with the Beast's pirates, and he didn't dare to risk offending Kaido and change the transaction time, Doflamingo would have wanted to postpone the transaction for a month. There was no way. Once the transaction with the Beast's pirates was exposed, it would easily cause a commotion from all parties, and even his position as a Seven Warlord of the Sea might not be stable. And he still needs this position to realize his ambition. Out of caution, Doflamingo even brought the family's top carder, Tremble, who was usually responsible for protecting the special carders, with him this time. He was afraid that there would be an accident in this transaction. The Beast's pirates also attached great importance to this transaction and sent Jack, one of the three disasters, to trade. After all, this is related to whether Kaido can form an animal-type ability army. The two parties continued to move towards the encirclement of the world government and the navy. When the trading ships of the Don Quixote family and the Beast's pirates just set out to sea, Bai Ye and Aokiji got the news through CP0. Moreover, Bai Ye and Aokiji were told not to take action in advance and must wait until the two parties were trading before taking action to capture them. When things developed to this point, Bai Ye knew that he could start his plan. Notify Sonic to transfer, and then just wait quietly to see whose island they will choose for the transaction location. Chapter 74, Playing a Trick. Without knowing where the two trading ships would meet, Bai Ye could only transfer Mapel Cecil Palace to Saint Island and make all preparations. So, Bai Ye followed Sonic to the nameless deserted island where Mapel Cecil Palace was imprisoned. The deserted island was not far from Saint Island. With Bai Ye and Sonic's speed comparable to the speed of sound, they arrived in less than an hour. Sonic temporarily placed Mapel Cecil Palace in a cave. Although it looked relatively clean, it was only clean for ordinary people. For a noble celestial dragon like Mapel Cecil Palace, even the air outside of Mirajoa was considered polluted, and they needed to wear a bubble mask to travel. Now they are forced to stay in such a place for nearly a month, and their food, clothing, housing and transportation are very different from their previous lives. And these things that other celestial dragons could not accept at all. Mapel Cecil Palace actually injured them all, and survived until now. This can only show one thing. Mapel Cecil Palace is definitely not the kind of brainless arrogant celestial dragon. On the contrary, she is very smart, and knows when to make trouble, and when not to. But being too smart is not a good thing. Bai Ye stood not far from the cave in trance, his mind surging with thoughts, wondering whether to cancel this plan and directly kill Mapel Cecil Palace and throw it in this wilderness. It is estimated that within half a day, her body will be eaten clean by the wild beasts on the island. There will be no trace left. There will be no risk to herself. But it is unlikely to completely solve the Don Quixote family by just trading with the beast's pirates. After all, in the original work, Doflamingo was only imprisoned by the Navy on the 6th floor of Impel Down even when all his crimes were exposed by Luffy. For him, trading with the Beast's pirates can only be considered more difficult. After thinking for a while, Bai Ye decided to continue with the plan, but he could add something to it to confuse Mapel Cecil Palace. Even if it was discovered that Bai Ye was responsible, Bai Ye would have earned a lot of world power by then, and could suppress an era by himself. It didn't matter whether he was discovered or not. In the cave, Mapel Cecil Palace was no longer as noble as before. Her face was yellow, and she looked a little thin. Her expensive white dress had turned black, and even many parts were torn. You could vaguely see her fair skin and good figure. She lay on the ground covered with dry grass, as if she was in a coma, and had not yet woken up. But even when Mapel Cecil Palace was in a coma, Sonic still covered her eyes with a cloth, and tied her hands and feet with ropes, making it foolproof. As expected of the lone testicle ninja, from the way Sonic treated women, it can be seen that he no longer had that kind of worldly desire. At this time, Mapel Cecil Palace had gradually woken up. In the absence of vision, her hearing would be much stronger than normal. She seemed to have heard 2 different footsteps coming from the cave in trance, but there was only one footstep. The smart Maple Cecil Palace immediately realized that something might happen today, and these things would determine her life or death. These people of unknown origin had imprisoned her in the cave for more than 20 days, and now they were finally going to attack her. Maple Cecil Palace listened to the footsteps getting closer and closer, but she did not wake up and remained unconscious. For Maple Cecil Palace, who was not even a scumbag, coma was her best means of self-protection. Bai Ye and Sonic came in and saw the unconscious Maple Cecil Palace, looked at each other, and smiled, but did not make a sound. It seems that the celestial dragon should not know that the breathing rhythm when comatose and awake is different. In fact, Bai Ye and Sonic noticed it when she just woke up, but they did not expose her on the spot. However, this also facilitated Bai Ye's temporary plan. Bai Ye lowered his voice to make it sound more powerful and said, "Finally, we can solve this problem. We have been forced to spend the past month on a deserted island. I'm so bored." Sonic also changed his voice and said, "Don't talk. If she remembers my voice, it will be troublesome. What's there to be afraid of? When the transaction comes, I will hand her over to the Beast's pirates. It is not certain whether she can survive in the future." You have a point. It will be difficult to get out of the Beast's pirates after entering the Beast's pirates. At this time, Maple Cecil Palace, who heard the conversation between the two, almost jumped up. They actually wanted to hand me over to the Beast's pirates, one of the 4 emperors. Although Maple Cecil Palace lives in Mirajoa, she often hears the name of the 4 emperors. These are 4 monsters at the top of the sea. For them, killing the celestial dragons may be a little troublesome, but they will never dare to kill them. Under tension, Maple Cecil Palace's breathing became a little faster. After noticing this detail, Bai Ye prepared to reveal some more explosive information to increase credibility and let Maple Cecil fall into the trap. Bai Ye pretended to be nonchalant and said, "This celestial dragon is really valuable. Her value is actually equivalent to 100 artificial devil fruits." Yes, Kaido collected animal type devil fruits everywhere to build an army of animal devil fruit users. Now, he actually uses 100 artificial devil fruits to exchange for celestial dragons. It's really incomprehensible. Forget it. Why bother so much? Just listen to the arrangements of the young master. Young master? There are very few pirates who call themselves young masters. Could it be Doflamingo? Maple Cecil's breathing became more rapid. It turned out that Doflamingo had done something to me, and what they revealed in their conversation just now was a big secret. Doflamingo actually developed an artificial devil fruit. This is a technology that Vegapunk has not developed. Moreover, Kaido's secret formation of the 100 Beasts army is also news they have never heard of. No matter which of these 2 pieces of news were spread, it would be enough to cause a shock in the sea. Bai Ye saw that the fish had taken the bait, and he knew that the secret he had told was enough. So he said to Sonic, "The transaction will start soon, and now we should prepare to move. By the way, in order to prevent the celestial dragon from waking up during the journey, you'd better hit her again, so as not to ruin our business." After hearing this, Maple Cecil Palace cursed in her heart. What kind of villains are these? They are so vicious. I'm still unconscious, and they want to hit me again. Unfortunately, she didn't have a chance to say this. Sonic acted very quickly and directly made Maple Cecil Palace, who was pretending to be unconscious, really fainted. Chapter 75 CP0's Invitation. The 2 put the Maple Cecil Palace into a wooden box and brought it back to Saint Island. Bai Ye didn't have to wait too long before he received accurate information. The place where the 2 sides traded was Jal Island guarded by CP0. Although it was not on the island guarded by him, it was not a bad thing for Bai Ye. It was safer to let others find out than to find out by himself. But in this case, it would be more troublesome to implement the plan. After receiving the news, Bai Ye rushed to Jal Island at full speed. As for Sonic, he took the Maple Cecil Palace and followed far behind, looking for the right time to put the wooden box containing the Maple Cecil Palace in the goods traded by both parties. When Bai Ye arrived, he found that in addition to Aokiji and Lingjiu, the world government sent another member of CP0. His figure was no different from that of a normal person, and he wore a crying mask with a black background on his face, which looked a little creepy. Looking at Ling Jiu standing respectfully behind him, this person's ranking might be more than one level higher than Ling Jiu. Because Bai Ye and Ling Jiu did not get along well last time, Ling Jiu did not introduce his companions who were also CP0 after Bai Ye arrived. Instead, Aokiji introduced Bai Ye. This is Lingson from CP0, the person in charge of our operation this time. Bai Ye nodded to Lingson and completely ignored Ling Jiu. Ling Jiu's anger surged in his heart, but at this time, it was not easy to burst out, so he had to force himself to hold it back. Lingson looked at Bai Ye and said in a hoarse voice, "Are you Bai Ye? A week ago, Edward Weeble, who called himself Whitebird II, was killed by you with one sword?" Bai Ye said calmly, "If you are talking about the idiot who looks a bit like Whitebird, then it should be me who killed him." Hearing this, Ling San's expression under the mask changed slightly, and he looked at Bai Ye deeply for a few times. Although no one on the scene knows the reputation of Edward Weeble now, let alone his strength. But Lingson knew. He still remembered that half a year ago, when he was on an investigation mission, and passed by a certain sea area, he heard someone claiming to be the son of Whitebird, one of the 4 emperors. Out of his spy instinct, he followed him all the way. When he saw Weevil, Lingson was also shocked by Weevil's appearance, which was too much like Whitebird. This made Lingson have no doubts and directly confirmed Weevil's identity. But when he was about to take down Whitebird's son and make a great contribution, he found that Weevil's strength was not inferior to his, and coupled with his almost terrifying recovery ability, even Lingson was not his opponent. So, Lingson had to give up this idea and report the news. After returning to Mirajoa, he never heard any news about Weevil again. But until a few days ago, he suddenly heard that an 18-year-old Navy Rear Admiral named Bai Ye killed Weevil. His first reaction was, "Are you kidding me?" With Weevil's strength and his terrifying recovery ability, he can fight against Admiral level warriors without losing. "You told me that he was killed by a Rear Admiral with one sword. He was only 18 years old. Are you kidding?" But after getting confirmation from many people, Lingson was stunned. A strong man who could kill Weevil with one sword was actually a Rear Admiral in the Navy. Isn't this a joke? It just so happened that Lingson asked Bai Ye to participate in this operation, wanting to see Bai Ye. After seeing Bai Ye, Lingson was more certain of his thoughts. After a moment of silence, Lingson said something that shocked everyone. "Bai Ye, you can give up your Navy identity and join CP0 after this operation. I can be your guarantor. I have read your information and know that you have never eaten a devil fruit. If you are willing to join CP0, as long as you pass the normal training, we will provide you with a very powerful devil fruit. And it is definitely a powerful fruit that is no less powerful than the natural devil fruit and the animal type fantasy beast devil fruit." Bai Ye was stunned. "What does that mean? You want me to be a dog for the celestial dragons? And you seduce me with the devil fruit?" Aokiji was stunned. "What does that mean? You are poaching the Navy's people in front of the Navy's admiral. Do you think I, the admiral, am just a decoration?" Ling Jiu was even more stunned. "What does that mean? This guy's going to be my colleague?" Seeing that Bai Ye was silent, Lingson continued, "As long as you can become a formal member of CP0, I can guarantee that you will become 04, or replace me as 03. As soon as these words came out, Bai Ye hadn't reacted much, and Ling Jiu almost fainted on the spot. It's not enough to be a colleague, but in the blink of an eye, he has become my immediate superior? Thinking back to just now, he was still not getting along with Bai Ye, but now as long as Bai Ye nods, he can directly become his immediate superior and decide his life and death. This sense of gap made Ling Jiu jealous. Thinking about how he had been undergoing cruel training since childhood, surviving from thousands of selected children, and successfully joining the highest spy organization CP0. When he was outside, he was also in control of a region of power, and could decide the life and death of several countries. He thought he had reached a position that ordinary people could not reach, but the little Rear Admiral in front of him had actually turned into his immediate superior, which made Ling Jiu completely unacceptable. If Ling Jiu knew that the position he coveted so much was just a dog ranked higher in Bai Ye's eyes, how would he feel? Before Bai Ye could reply, Aokiji's expression was serious, and a faint chill emanated from his body. The temperature dropped several degrees in an instant, and frost suddenly formed on the tender green grass at his feet. Aokiji said coldly, "For now, let's focus on dealing with the affairs of the beast pirates and Doflamingo. Other matters can be discussed after the operation is over. This poaching is still going on right in front of me. Do you really not take me, a Navy Admiral, seriously?" Seeing that Aokiji was getting angry, Linkson stopped talking. After all, what he was doing now was indeed not right. However, Linkson still secretly signaled Bai Ye to think about it carefully and give a reply after the action was over. TSK, handsome guys can really get along anywhere. The Admiral of the Navy and the Chief of the Secret Service almost fought over me. Bai Ye thought narcissistically. As for Linksan's proposal, Bai Ye didn't take it seriously at all. It's very simple. As a Navy, I will be rewarded with world source power for promotion. Being a Secret Service chief won't be a reward. Besides, Bai Ye doesn't want to be a dog for the Celestial Dragons. If he really goes, he will probably slaughter Merijar in less than half a day. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.